Chapter 842. Elder Chang slowly raises his head, looking straight into Di Mingju's eyes. He enunciates each word. Do you want the tragedy of the Shen musicians to repeat itself on Miss June? Di Mingju's pupils suddenly contract. The madness in his eyes is slowly replaced by coldness and determination. Elder Chang's words are very respectful, very gentle. But each word is like a needle, piercing the bloody truth. He is the emperor of the polar domain. He can't disregard the tens of thousands of lives in the polar domain. Even more so, he can't lose the ability to protect Mayan. Otherwise, when Mayan's identity as a Shun musician is exposed, she will be consigned to eternal damnation. And he can only look on helplessly as those sanctimonious, greedy people tear Mayan apart. Jun Shang, this subordinate, is willing to go to the Xiuzhen continent and look for Miss June. As soon as Ing Mei's words leave her mouth, she is interrupted by Elder Chang. No, before Jun Shang recovers his cultivation and comes out of the soul cultivation house, none of you can go to Miss June, let alone approach her. Ing Mei jerks her head up, her eyes filled with anxiety and guilt. If Jun Shang hadn't been protecting her and Han Yi during the tearing of time and space, he wouldn't have suffered such a heavy injury. Elder Chang sighs. The Xiuzhen continent is not like the Yinwu continent. Everything that happens there will be seen by many people here. Once you look for and approach Miss June, it will only make many people focus their attention on Miss June, which will bring about a fatal disaster to Miss June. Ing Mei sucks in a mouthful of cold air, dejectedly lowering her head. Han Yi gently holds her hand, softly saying, "Don't worry. Miss June is so powerful, she must know how to protect herself." Di Mingju's hand clenches into a fist, then loosens a little. It's as if Mayan's words are still echoing in his ears. If you know me well enough to want to spend a lifetime with me, then don't say such apologies. I'm not a daughter flower that attaches itself to you. I won't leave you in life and death, but it's impossible for you to stay by my side and protect me all the time. That way, I will lose my courage, lose myself, and become unlike Mayan. Di Mingju closes his eyes. When he opens them again, he has already restored his cold tranquility. At this time, the imposing manner around his body has once again returned to that of the polar domain's emperor. He slowly walked back to the bed and sat down. It was clearly a simple and crude bedroom with a luxurious stone bed, but because of his existence, it instantly became like a high and mighty Lingxiao palace. Star Wolf's eyes shone with a blazing light, filled with reverence. This was their emperor, a natural-born king. He was the person Star Wolf swore to be loyal to for the rest of his life. The only flaw was the woman who bewitched the god monarch. To actually let the sovereign monarch take risks again and again, to the extent that he completely disregarded the safety of the polar domain and himself. It would be great if that woman could die on the cultivation continent. The Star Wolf lowers his eyes, concealing the murderous intent in them. He respectfully and obediently kneels in front of Di Mingju. Send the order to the cultivation continent. The man's low and cold voice slowly sounded in this little stone house. 3 days later, the polar domain, Jasper Banquet, will be held. Elder Chang's eyes widened, and it took him a while to recover from the shock. The Jasper Banquet was a grand event that was held once every 10 years in the polar domain. Its purpose was to select concubines for the polar domain's emperor. But ever since Di Mingju became the polar domain's sovereign, the Jasper Banquet has never been held again. Chapter 843. But today, Jun Shang actually wants to hold the Jasper Banquet? Di Mingju slightly narrows his eyes, and an invisible pressure spreads out in the stone house. What? Didn't you hear Ben Jun's order clearly? No. This subordinate will go and prepare. Everyone retreats in confusion, until only one person is left. Di Mingju opens his palm, and looks at the faintly flickering runes on it. His cold and stern eyes reveal a bone-piercing tenderness and longing. Yin, wait for me. The news that the polar domain is going to hold the Jasper Banquet spreads throughout the entire Xiuzhen continent almost in a flash. Young master, Di Jun is going to hold the Jasper Banquet. Will he announce that you are his divine empress at the Jasper Banquet? In order to kill Mayan, Long Qingwan lost 3 of her trusted subordinates. Right now, She only has Ziwan by her side. Ziwan hands over the invitation to the Jasper banquet, her face full of excitement and agitation. Lung Qingwan is ecstatic at first, but the scene of Di Mingju holding Mayan suddenly flashes before her eyes. Her face distorts, and she comforts herself. So what if that slut had seduced Di Jun? Now that that slut is dead, wouldn't the position of Polar Domain's mistress still belong to her? Di Jun holding the Jasper banquet at this moment is certainly because he's tired of that slut and wants to select the real Divine Empress. And looking at the entire Xiaoxian continent, who else is more suitable than herself to become the mistress of Polar Domain? 3 days later, the Jasper banquet begins. Although it's only 3 days, many immortals who are far away simply can't make it. But on the day of the Jasper banquet, the Lingxiao Hall of the Polar Domain is still filled with guests from various forces. Among these guests, the majority of them were young girls with lustful expressions. Each and every one of them is looking at the high and lofty throne. Even if it's still empty, it doesn't prevent them from fantasizing about how heroic and otherworldly the master of that throne is, how a monarch descending upon the world would make people look up to him. Lung Qingwan's gaze sweeps over the women present, and she proudly raises her head, letting out a disdainful snort. Ziwan immediately says with disdain, "These women should take a piss and take a look at themselves. How dare they think of Di Jun? They aren't even fit to carry Miss shoes." Because the Jasper banquet was held in a hurry, Di Mingju didn't even send people to inform many places. Therefore, those who came this time were all small sects and schools in the periphery, or forces attached to the Polar Domain. The status of the women sent over by these sects and forces naturally couldn't be compared to Lung Qingwan, the young mistress of the Tianyi men. Sure enough, after those women found out Lung Qingwan's identity, each and every one of them revealed an envious expression. Some whispers even reached Lung Qingwan's ears. That is Tianyi Min's young master, one of Xiaoxian continent's 3 great beauties, Qingwan Fairy. For the Polar Domain to hold the exquisite pearl banquet this time in such a hurry, presumably they had already decided on the candidate for the Divine Empress. The rest is just a formality. The candidate for the Divine Empress must be Fairy Qingwan. It's really enviable. I heard that the Polar Domain and the Tianyi men already had an engagement long ago. I'll be satisfied as long as I can become the Emperor's concubine. I don't dare to compete with Fairy Qingwan for the position of Divine Empress. Chapter 844. The corners of Lung Qingwan's mouth behind the veil hooked up into a haughty smile. Her pair of eyes stared fixedly at the throne, imagining herself nestled in the Emperor's embrace and receiving the attention of tens of thousands of people. She felt indescribably carefree. The Emperor has arrived. The announcement silenced the entire hall. Then, a tall figure slowly walked over and casually sat on the throne. Everyone's gazes were focused on that person. Following that, the sound of people sucking in a breath of cold air could be heard in the hall. Everyone knew the name of the Polar Domain Empyrean, but only a few people had seen the real Empyrean. At this moment, many young girls' hearts were beating crazily, as if they were about to jump out of their mouths. How could there be such a handsome man in this world? Originally, he thought that the high and mighty emperor only had monstrous power, but it turned out that even his appearance was unparalleled in the world. If she could gain his favor and be by his side, she would be willing to die. Originally, these girls were only a little jealous of Lung Qingwan. But now, when he thought that Lung Qingwan could become the wife of such a deity, he simply went crazy with jealousy. Lung Qingwan foolishly looks at Di Mingju sitting in the seat of honor. Her eyes are filled with infatuation. After a long while, she finally stood up, took a few steps forward, and slowly bowed. "Greetings, Emperor." After bowing, she raised her head and revealed a smile that was just right, gentle and worried. "I haven't seen you for a few days. Emperor seems to have lost a lot of weight. Qingwan has refined some elixirs that can replenish blood and nourish qi. Emperor, please accept them." As she spoke, she took out a bottle of pills. When the people around her saw the elixir in her hand, their eyes were filled with excitement. Everyone knew that the medicinal pills refined by the Heaven's Physician sect were priceless and the best. What's more, It was personally refined by the Tian Yi Min's young master. Lung Qingwan maintains a proper smile on her face, waiting for the person next to Di Mingju to take the elixir from her hand. However, 1 breath passed, 2 breaths passed, 3 breaths passed. Lung Qingwan's hands were sore, but no one came over to receive the medicine. Old Ji, who had always flattered and fawned over her, was not even in the main hall. The smile on Lung Qingwan's face finally froze. She didn't know whether she should hand out the pill or take it back. Many people in the hall had already started to point at her and whisper among themselves. At this moment, Di Mingju slowly opens his mouth. This monarch heard that the Polar Domain and the Heaven Physician sect had once set up an engagement. Is that true? Elder Chang hurriedly said, replying to the emperor, this marriage agreement was set verbally between the previous emperor of the Polar Domain and sect Master Long of the Tianyi Men. Di Mingju nods, his gaze sweeping over everyone present. Ben Jun has convened the Jasper banquet today precisely for this matter. The stiff smile on Lung Qingwan's face slowly returned to normal. His eyes lit up with a resplendent light. Sure enough, the reason why Junshang is holding the Jasper banquet is to fulfill the engagement and announce her as the Extreme Domain's Divine Empress. She discreetly took back the bottle of medicinal pills, then revealed a shy smile and said softly, marriage is the order of parents and the words of a matchmaker. Since this engagement was set by Master for Qingwan, Qingwan naturally is willing. Moreover, Qingwan's admiration for the emperor has never changed. Everyone's envious gazes fall on Lung Qingwan. Although the Tianyi Min is powerful and can be compared to the Polar Domain that rules over half of the Shoshin continent, it's still far from enough. Chapter 845. Di Mingju slightly narrows his eyes. The corner of his mouth hooks up into a sneer of ridicule. His gaze seems to sweep past Lung Qingwan with disgust, looking at everyone present. Everyone, witness, Ben Jun declares that the engagement between Ji Domain and Tianyi Min is cancelled. Lung Qingwan has never been Ben Jun's fiancée. From now on, whoever dares to spread such rumors will be severely punished. Whoosh! Di Mingju's words are like a boulder thrown into a calm lake, setting off great waves in a split second. What's going on? Wasn't it said that Qingwan Fairy was going to be announced as the Divine Empress at the Jade Banquet? How could it be called off the engagement? I also heard that Di Jun is deeply in love with Qingwan Fairy and doesn't let any woman get close to him, but only gets close to Qingwan Fairy? So all of this was just a rumor? Could it be that these rumors were spread by Qingwan Fairy? This is too shameless. The chattering sounds of discussion reach Lung Qingwan's ears, but she only feels like her brain is roaring, and she can't hear anything clearly. Her face is deathly pale, and her body is on the verge of collapse, especially when those young girls who were just jealous of her are now pointing at her with ridiculing expressions. It makes her wish that she could find a hole to crawl into. Di Jun, why? How can you treat me like this? Lung Qingwan finally can't bear it and shouts loudly. She rushes forward, wanting to grab Di Mingju's hand, but he ruthlessly shakes it off in disgust. Lung Qingwan awkwardly falls to the ground, and the gauze covering her face is lifted, revealing her pale and distorted face. The surrounding young girls let out waves of disdainful ridicule. Oh, I originally heard that Qingwan Fairy is one of the 3 great beauties of Shoshin continent, and I thought she was very good-looking, but it turns out that she's nothing more than this? That's right. She's not as beautiful as Sister Qinglian. No wonder Di Jun doesn't like her. With this kind of appearance, she still has the nerve to call herself one of the 3 great beauties? If she wasn't Di Jun's fiancée, do you think she would have a place in the 3 great beauties? Everyone's ridiculing laughter, pointing and humiliating fingers, makes Lung Qingwan feel like the world is spinning. She had been at the top all her life and was sought after and envied by others. When had she ever suffered such public humiliation? This kind of humiliation was even more unbearable than losing half of her cultivation. It was even more unbearable than death. Di Mingju. Lung Qingwan screams hysterically, how can you do this to me? The engagement was set by your father and my master. You can't cancel it. You must marry me. Deming Ju stands up and condescendingly looks at her. What if Bin-jun doesn't marry? Why? What's wrong with me? I'm the young lord of Tian-e-min. I know how to refine medicine, and my talent is top-notch. How am I not worthy of you? Why are you doing this to me? Deming Ju slightly narrows his eyes, his exceptionally handsome face slowly hooking up into an evil and callous smile. Bin-jun feels disgusted just by looking at you. Marrying you is worse than marrying a sow. Are you satisfied with this reason? Lung Qingwan's eyes suddenly widened. Her chest heaved up and down violently, and her eyes turned white. The wound that she had already suppressed erupted again. She suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground, almost at her last gasp. Chapter 846. Finished speaking, Deming Ju doesn't stay any longer and turns to leave. Elder Chang watches as Deming Ju's figure disappears. His line of sight falls on the shocked and excited crowd, as well as Lung Qingwan, who is lying on the ground, looking as if she could faint and die at any moment. He curls his lips and sneers. Were the people of Tian-e-min really a bunch of idiots? Because of the kindness of those years, Di-jun had always been courteous to the people of Tian-e-min. Even if Lung Qingwan was spreading rumors outside, she had never thought of punishing him to clear his name. However, he didn't expect that Lung Qingwan would unexpectedly reach for a yard after being given an inch. She was so audacious that she dared to interfere in the internal affairs of the polar domain. Did they really think that the emperor was a gentle and harmless person that they could manipulate and slaughter at will? Heh. Little did they know that sometimes the emperor was the most ruthless and narrow-minded person, especially when someone touched his reverse scale, touched the person he cared about the most. After today, the news that Deming Ju despises Lung Qingwan for being disgusting and inferior to a sow will spread throughout the entire Xiaoxin continent. From then on, when people talked about Lung Qingwan, she was no longer a cold and aloof fairy that people envied. Instead, she was a scheming and shameless woman whom the god monarch despised. For Lung Qingwan, who cared about face and vanity the most, this was 100 times more painful than killing her. Sure enough, no matter who you offend, you can't offend an emperor. Elder Chang shook his head with a smile and announced loudly, "The exquisite dragon banquet has come to an end. Everyone, please return." One day, the polar domain would hold the real Jasper banquet. Wait until the moment when their true mistress, their holy queen, descends. The people in the Lingxiao Hall gradually dispersed. Although the immortal Jade banquet had started and ended abruptly, although the dreams of these young girls and their sex to soar into the sky had not come true. However, not many people felt regretful. Instead, they were all excited. She couldn't wait to immediately spread the news that Lung Qingwan and Tian-e-min had been abandoned by Polar Domain's monarch in public. In the soul-nurturing house, Deming Ju's body, lying on the stone bed, suddenly opens his eyes. His complexion was a bit pale. This time, forcefully separating his primordial spirit to leave the soul-nurturing house made his injuries even worse. The time needed to recuperate would also be longer, but he did not regret it. If it weren't for Lung Qingwan and Elder Ji, Mo Rufeng wouldn't have been forced to separate from Mu Yin. Now he was unable to leave the soul cultivation house and was unable to obliterate the Tian-e-min. At the very least, he would make Lung Qingwan pay a painful price. Deming Ju spreads out his hand and gently kisses the lines on his palm. In a split second, he changes from being full of hostility to being as gentle as water. Yin Yin, Xiaobao, wait for me. He repeated it again and again, as if it were the most devout vow. Yin Yin, wait for me. Yin Yin, wait for me. Yin Yin, I will definitely return to your side. Yin Yin, Yin Yin. Mu Yin suddenly opened his eyes, but he only felt pain all over his body, as if it was about to fall apart. She sucked in a breath of cold air and let out a low moan. But then, she felt that something was wrong. As he breathed, cool spiritual energy flowed into his meridians. It felt like she was cultivating next to the spirit vein in the space, but the spirit chi here was much thicker than in the space, just not as pure as in the space. Where was she? What happened? That's right, thunder tribulation. God-slaying thunder tribulation. Mu Yin abruptly sat up from the ground and looked all around. Xiao Bao. However, what she saw was a messy house, not the thunderous Wuong Mountains. Chapter 847. Hearing Mayan's shouts, an angry curse comes from beside her. So noisy. Do you want to make me deaf? Mayan turns her head to take a look. She sees a beautiful woman sitting not far from her, but her hair is disheveled, her clothes are covered in dust, and there's a trace of panic and fear in her eyes. Where is this place? Mayan asks in a daze. Unfortunately, no one pays attention to her. Those young girls only care about crying. Mayan presses her aching and swollen temples, and her divine sense sinks into the space. She thinks she'll see Xiao Bao in the space, but she's disappointed. Looking at the empty space, Mayan's heart sinks a little. Chi Huang, get the hell out here. However, the space is still deathly silent, and there's not even the slightest response. Xiao Bao. Thinking that something might have happened to Xiao Bao, Mayan's eyes redden. Just then, a timid voice reaches her ear. Beautiful sister, don't worry, little brother is fine. Mayan's divine sense turns, and soon finds a red fireball lying in the space tower. It's Qiuqiu. Just that Qiuqiu used to be in the fire phoenix form. Now, it's turned back into a ball. Qiuqiu was touched by the gods slaying thunder tribulation a little, so it can't return to its phoenix form for a while. Boo-hoo-hoo, beautiful sister, don't dislike Qiuqiu. Mayan promptly touches her with her mental power. Good Qiuqiu. Tell me, why are you here? Where's Xiao Bao? Qiuqiu doesn't know where little brother is, but Qiuqiu's fire phoenix doppelganger can sense that it's in a very, very comfortable place. Not only is little brother fine, but he's also getting stronger. Qiuqiu is little brother's contracted beast. Little brother's power is pouring into Qiuqiu, and Qiuqiu will soon become a beautiful phoenix. Fireball excitedly twirls around as it speaks. The little phoenix's words were incoherent, but Mayan finally understood. When the god-slaying thunder tribulation finally fell, she and Xiaobao don't know why, but powerful energy erupted from them. It miraculously allowed them to successfully cross the tribulation and ascend. Therefore, she's no longer in the Yinwu continent, but in the Xiuzhen continent. It was no wonder that when she operated her dantian and even when she breathed casually, she could feel the presence of spiritual energy. This was because this wasn't a desolate continent devoid of spiritual energy, but a paradise that cultivators yearned for even in their dreams, the cultivation continent. However, in the process of ascension, due to the time difference when passing through the spatial barrier, she and Xiaobao were separated. At that time, Little Phoenix just happened to be by Mu Yan's side. It was too late to return to Xiaobao's body, so it could only send its Fire Phoenix clone to Xiaobao's body. Beautiful sister, don't worry. Qiuqiu knows very well whether little brother is good or not. It's just that little big bro is very far away from us right now. Qiuqiu's cultivation base is not high enough, so he cannot sense little big bro's location. Mu Yin gently touches the ball, looking grateful. Qiuqiu, you've already done very well. Thank you. If it wasn't for little Phoenix, she wouldn't know about Xiaobao's safety and would probably go crazy from worry. Now, at least he knew that his darling was safe and sound. The only thing she had to do was to find her baby. Oh, pretty sister is praising Qiuqiu. I'm so happy. Chapter 848. The fiery ball spins around in the air, giggling foolishly. Mu Yin watches for a while, then withdraws her mental power from the space. Almost at the same time, she hears a woman scream. Where is this? Big sister, little sister. Why are we locked up here? Boo-hoo-hoo, I'm scared. I don't want to stay here. Big sister, little sister, save me. Cry, cry, cry. You only know how to cry. If you hadn't controlled your temper and clashed with others, would we have been plotted against? Would we have been locked up here? If we can't make it to the sex selection because of you, see if I don't peel off your skin. Mu Yin looks sideways and finds that the one speaking is the woman who just cursed her. The two unconscious girls lying beside her had woken up, which was why they were making such a ruckus. From their conversation, Mu Yin learns that these three girls are apprentice sisters. The big sister is called Wu Fangyi, the woman who just cursed Mu Yin. The crying one is the second sister, Qin Xiuxiu, and the youngest girl, who looks like a clear white lotus, is called Lu Ruoxuan. The three of them had a conflict with someone on the street. Qin Xiuxiu was unruly and headstrong, and couldn't bear the loss, so she taught someone a lesson. She didn't expect that they would turn around and be drugged. When they wake up again, they are already in this dilapidated house. Lu Ruoxuan gently comforts the collapsed Qin Xiuxiu, second sister. Don't cry. I believe that Big Brother and the others will definitely come to save us. But I don't want to stay here for even a moment. Why are we locked up here? Qin Xiuxiu cries, let me out. Let me out. I don't want to stay here. Boo-hoo-hoo. Don't cry. You're already in here, and you still want to leave. Stop dreaming. A haggard woman on the side can't help but say. Qin Xiuxiu glares at her. What is this place? Why did you catch us? The woman looks at her with pity, and after a long while, she slowly says, This is Heavenly Fragrance Building. What is Heavenly Fragrance Building? Qin Xiuxiu is just about to ask where Heavenly Fragrance Building is when she sees Wu Fangyi and Lu Ruoxuan's faces change. At this time, Qin Xiuxiu also remembers, and the expression on her face instantly turns into horror. Heavenly Fragrance Building, isn't that a brothel? Why did you lock us up here? Qin Xiuxiu rushed over and slammed on the door. Let me out. Let me out. I don't want to become a lowly prostitute. I want to leave this place. Someone, let me out. Woo-woo-woo. Mu Yin wrinkles her brows. She didn't expect that the moment she arrived at the cultivation continent, she would be caught and brought to a brothel. It was probably because she had passed out from the god, slaying Thunder Tribulation, that someone had picked her up. Recalling the god slaying Thunder Tribulation, Mu Yin hurriedly examined her body. Soon after, she was pleasantly surprised to find that her cultivation had actually broken through the Anidia realm. As early as when she was in the Yinwu continent, she already knew that the levels in the Xiuzhen continent are divided into Forging Body, Anidia, Jindan, Nascent Soul, Astral Projection, Crossing Tribulation. Every major realm was further divided into 9 minor realms, from the 1st to the 9th level. Currently, Mayan's cultivation is just at the 1st level of fasting. The strangest thing was that when ordinary people ascended, their sea of qi would disappear and turn into their dantian. But when she was in Yinwu continent, her dantian had already coexisted with her qi sea. Chapter 849. It's just that there's very little internal force on the Xiuzhen continent, so when she revolves her qi sea, she can only condense a little bit of internal force. But when she revolves her dantian, pure spiritual power surges into her meridians like a tide, making her feel so comfortable that she wants to sigh. It seems that this time, she really profited from a disaster. The god-slaying Thunder Tribulation has made her body and talent even more perfect. We're about to be defiled, and you can still laugh. Slut, are you born to like being played with by men? Looking at your foxy appearance, I know that you're that smelly, shameless whore. Mayan is immersed in the carefree feeling of spiritual power cleansing her meridians. Suddenly, she feels a swift and fierce attack coming towards her. She suddenly opens her eyes and sees Qin Xiuxiu ruthlessly kicking her. Mayan doesn't even think about it as she grabs her ankle and ruthlessly flings it. Ah! Qin Xiuxiu howls like a pig being butchered. She falls to the ground, unable to get up for a long time. She cries and points at Mayan, roaring, You actually dare to attack me. Mayan sneers, If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. You can't control those feet of yours. Do you want me to chop them off for you and properly discipline them? Qin Xiuxiu's entire person is stunned from the fall. After a long while, she comes back to her senses and lets out a painful groan. Seeing this, Wu Fangyi and Lu Ruoxuan quickly rush over to help her up. Second sister, are you okay? Lu Ruoxuan's face is full of worry. Qin Xiuxiu slowly comes back to her senses and pushes Lu Ruoxuan away. She viciously pounces towards Mayan. What are you? You actually dare to hit me? Look at your foxy and shameless appearance. You're clearly the stuff that seduces men. Where did this ant say anything wrong? This time, she revolves the spiritual power in her body ahead of time, and her hands are instantly covered with a layer of frost. However, when that fierce attack arrives in front of Mayan, she casually catches it. Then, Mayan raises her hands and ruthlessly slaps her face. The next moment, an ice-cold dagger is pressed against Chun Xiuxiu's neck. Mu Yan's beautiful peach blossom eyes were very close, but what rippled within them was not a bright and beautiful wave of light, but a bone-chilling, killing intent. It seems that what you don't want is not your feet, but your head. Since that's the case, how about I cut it off for you right now? Chun Xiuxiu's body froze, and the anger on her face instantly turned into fear. His body trembled slightly, but he did not dare to move. You, don't mess around. I'm a disciple of the Bright Moon sect. If you kill me, my senior brother won't let you off. Lu Ruoxuan also quickly rushes over, bowing and apologizing to Mu Yin. Miss, I'm sorry. My senior sister has a bad temper, but she doesn't have any bad intentions. Please forgive her. Mu Yin slightly narrows her eyes, and with a casual fling, Chen Xiuxiu is directly thrown out. Lu Ruoxuan was pleasantly surprised and repeatedly thanked her. He couldn't help but glance at her, seemingly curious and probing. A timid expression appeared on her lotus-like face. Miss, may I know where you are from? How did you get caught by the people of the Heavenly Fragrance Building? Mu Yin coldly glanced at her, but didn't pay attention to her. Without saying anything, she walked to a corner and continued her cultivation. Chapter 850. This time, Chen Xiuxiu is confused. The handprint on her face is even more swollen. Her eyes are filled with resentment, like she couldn't wait to dismember Mayan. But thinking of the strength that Mayan had just displayed, she doesn't dare to act rashly again. She can only cry and curse. Just then, the door to the room is suddenly pushed open. Several men with big, stocky waists and bare upper bodies walk in. The man in the lead has a knife scar on his face, and he holds a black whip in his hand. His cold and evil eyes sweep over everyone present. Soon after, a cackle is heard, accompanied by a sticky and disgusting sound. It seems that the quality of the goods that have been delivered this time is pretty good. Chen Xiuxiu couldn't help but rush over and shout, Do you still have the law? I'm the daughter of an elder of the Bright Moon sect. If you dare to touch me, my father won't let you off. Let me out, quickly let me out. Seeing Chen Xiuxiu rush over, the corner of the knife-scarred man's mouth hooks up into a sneer. He suddenly raises the whip in his hand and ruthlessly lashes at Chen Xiuxiu. Chen Xiuxiu immediately screams and falls to the ground. She groans incessantly, unable to get up for a long time. The knife-scarred man's sinister gaze sweeps over everyone present. Is there anyone else who dares to make a ruckus? Everyone in the room goes silent out of fear. Just then, a manservant runs in from outside and says a few words in the knife-scarred man's ear. The knife-scarred man narrows his eyes and immediately looks at the girls in the room with ill intentions. That's great. I didn't expect that there would be customers who want goods just after you were delivered. Among you, is there anyone with a water spirit root, and the quality is 3rd grade or higher? The room is silent. The girls are in fear and trepidation. No one dares to speak. The knife-scarred man sneers. Don't want to say? Then don't blame this uncle for being impolite. He swings the whip in his hand, and a delicate and pretty girl is caught. The knife-scarred man's hand ruthlessly grabs her dantian. The girl lets out a mournful scream, her whole body bending into a bow. The knife-scarred man disinterestedly curls his lips. Just a waste with a 5th grade spirit root. As he spoke, he waved his hand and tossed it to one of his subordinates beside him. He said nonchalantly, It's yours. You can play with it however you want as long as you don't kill it, and can still receive customers. The subordinate took the young girl and glanced at her delicate and pretty appearance. His face was filled with greed and excitement. He thanked the knife-scarred man and immediately dragged him into the small house. No, let me go. Let me go. Woo woo woo. Slut. It was the sound of a slap. You still want to maintain your innocence after entering the heavenly fragrance restaurant. I will take your virginity now, ha ha ha. This skin is really smooth and tender, much better than the last one. Ah, help, help. The young girl's screams for mercy and the man's vulgar curses and panting seemed to fade away bit by bit. The faces of all the girls in the rundown house were deathly pale, and their bodies were shivering. Some of the more timid ones were already crying out loud. Even Chen Xiuxiu curled up into a ball, not daring to say another word. The knife-scarred man looks at their performance with satisfaction and says with a sinister smile, "All right, now can you tell me, who has a 3rd grade or higher water spirit root?" Chapter 851. If after the time it takes for a stick of incense to burn, there is still no one with a 3rd grade water spirit root to step out, then don't blame me for testing them one by one. At that time, those who are found to have poor spirit roots. The knife-scarred man did not finish his words, but looked meaningfully at his subordinate beside him. His subordinate immediately revealed a wretched smile and even licked his lips, looking like he was eager to enjoy it. But the girls in the house were filled with despair, so scared that they were about to cry. The knife-scarred man laughed cruelly. Every time new goods came, he loved to play with these fresh and delicious girls like a cat catching mice. He would crush their dignity, conscience, desire, bit by bit. In the end, after their bodies were destroyed, they would become prostitutes in heavenly fragrance brothel who put on makeup and sold their bodies. One must know, the reason why heavenly fragrance brothel's business was so good these few years, other than having a powerful backing, the most important reason was that they could find good goods and train these women to be obedient. The door of the house was closed again. The inside fell into a dead silence. Despair, fear, and hope, accompanied by crying, lingered in the air. Finally, someone could not help but break the silence. Who has a water spirit root? Come out yourself, okay? I don't want to be defiled. I already have a fiancé. If I am to be defiled by those beasts, I might as well die. Sob, sob, sob. I also don't want to be defiled. I have an earth spirit root. Who has a water spirit root? Save us, please. We don't want to all end up like that. Yes, yes. 2 people being defiled is better than all of us being defiled, right? My father found out that I am missing. He will definitely come to save me. As long as we can survive these few days, all of us will be saved. Yes, yes, my senior brother and master will definitely come to save me. I definitely do not want to become the lowest of prostitutes. Sob, sob, sob. The voices of the girls in the house changed from the begging and fear at the beginning to full of hope. They all felt that as long as they survived this time, their loved ones would definitely come to save them. But the prerequisite was that they had to hand over 2 people with water spirit root to be the customers' cauldrons. Wei, I know you have a water spirit root, right? Suddenly, a young girl's voice rang out, interrupting everyone's conversation. Everyone's gazes immediately followed the direction of the man's finger and landed on a girl. The girl's appearance could only be considered delicate and pretty. She was very young, looking to be only 15 or 16 years old. When everyone's gaze landed on her, her entire face instantly turned snow white. His body trembled like a sieve. No, I'm not. The quality of my water spirit root is not good. Senior Sister Yunxiang, you clearly know my cultivation. The woman who had just spoken hurriedly interrupted her. Weizi, don't lie anymore. Even Master said that you are extraordinarily talented. Your water spirit root's quality is definitely above 3rd grade. Can you not be so selfish? As long as you sacrifice yourself, you can save all of us. Are you going to leave us to die? That's great. The other girls immediately beamed with joy. We finally found a water spirit root. No, I don't want to become a cauldron. Weizi cried out in fear. Seeing these women approaching, she screamed and tried to escape. Chapter 852. When the woman called Yunxiang saw that Weizi was tied up and couldn't even bite her tongue to commit suicide, she rubbed Weizi's head and said with a face full of pity, "Weizi, don't hate me. This is your fate. We are tying you up now because we don't want you to hurt yourself. Think about it. If you don't listen, all of us will die. Even if you become a prostitute, it's still better than death." Weizi looked at everyone with a face full of despair, but all she got in return was those people turning around mercilessly. Now that we have found a person with a water spirit root, but that person wants two, what do? Someone raised this question. Everyone's gaze swept across the surrounding people one by one. Suddenly, Yunxiang's gaze landed on Chen Xiuxiu. Just now, I seem to feel that she used her spirit energy. There was a water spirit energy fluctuation. Chen Xiuxiu's face immediately turned pale. What nonsense are you talking about? I don't even have a water spirit root. Whether you have a water spirit root or not, you'll know once you try. Yunxiang sneered. My wind fire sect sacrificed a junior sister for everyone. Since your bright moon sect has a person with a water spirit root, do you want to selfishly stand by the side and watch? Do you want everyone to die with you? That's right. As long as you sacrifice yourself, you can save everyone. How can you be so selfish? You actually want everyone to die together. Chen Xiuxiu shook her head desperately. No, I don't have a water spirit root. You guys are talking nonsense. I don't want to be defiled. I don't want to become a prostitute. My senior brother is about to come and save me. I am the daughter of a bright moon sect elder. But how could these women let her go for their own safety? A group of people rushed up and wanted to tie her up like Weizi. Chen Xiuxiu was almost scared to the point of going crazy. She grabbed Wu Fangyi and Lu Ruoxuan's hands and hysterically shouted, I don't want to become a furnace. I don't want to be defiled. Senior sister, junior sister, save me. Sob. As long as you guys are willing to help me, I promise that after we get out, I will give the inter-sect competition spot to you guys. Please save me. Sob. Lu Ruoxuan's hand was tightly gripped by Chen Xiuxiu. Her nails were embedded into her flesh. The pain almost made her cry. She couldn't help but say, Don't be like this, my senior sister. She is pure as ice and as clean as jade. How can you let her be defiled by others? How can you be so heartless? If she doesn't want to be defiled, do you want to be defiled? Do you want us to be defiled? Someone scolded her sarcastically. Why don't you replace her yourself? Lu Ruoxuan recalled the screams of the girl who was dragged away. Her body trembled and her face turned pale. She shook her head as if she was frightened. No, I don't have a water spirit root. Then what the hell are you talking about? After that, he dragged Chen Xiuxiu away and tied her up. Junior sister, save me. Help me. You're the kindest. You can't do this to me, junior sister. Lu Ruoxuan's face was full of panic and tears. At this time, she finally could not help but cry out, My senior sister is not the only one with a water spiritual root. That girl also has a pure water spiritual root aura. I beg you, can you let my senior sister go? Sob. In a split second, everyone's line of sight followed the direction of Lu Ruoxuan's finger and looked towards Mayan, who was sitting in the corner. Chapter 853. Therefore, no one even noticed her existence in the beginning. And when she was fighting with Chen Xiuxiu, her back was facing the other people except for Lu Ruoxuan and the other two. So these girls did not even see her face clearly. Even the knife-scarred man did not put the girl in his eyes. But now, when Lu Ruoxuan speaks and points, everyone's eyes are focused on Mayan's face. Immediately, several people sucked in a breath of cold air. It was only at this moment that these people realized that the young girl sitting in the corner possessed a devastatingly beautiful appearance. Her appearance was 100 times more beautiful than the bright and beautiful Chen Xiuxiu and the delicate and pitiful Lu Ruoxuan, especially that pair of bottomless peach blossom eyes. The corners of his eyes seemed to be curved but not curved, and his gaze seemed to be cold but not cold. However, with just a slight movement, he could steal away a person's soul. After the amazement, Several girls revealed looks of jealousy on their faces. There wasn't a girl who didn't desire a beautiful face. Therefore, when they saw someone prettier than them, they would naturally feel envious and even jealous. You also have the water spiritual root? Mu Yin slowly opens her eyes, not saying anything. She had just experienced the gods slaying lightning tribulation, and her internal organs, tendons, and veins were all injured. Although it was not fatal, it was still very uncomfortable. That was why she had been hiding in the corner and circulating her spiritual power to heal the injuries in her body. As a result, she didn't even pay attention to what was happening outside. Even when the knife-scarred man came in, she only vaguely checked on him. After confirming that he was not a threat to her, she no longer cared about him. But she didn't expect that she would become the target of public criticism when she opened her eyes again after she had mostly recovered from her injuries. Yes, she has the water spiritual root. I can testify. She has a water spirit root. If you want to catch her, then catch her. Chen Xiuxiu was afraid that everyone would grab her again. At this time, when she heard Lu Ruoxuan say that Mu Yin has a water spiritual root, it was as if she had grabbed a life-saving straw. She immediately shouted, "Moreover, our junior sister apprentice is gifted. She can see through a person's cultivation and spiritual root attribute. If she said that this woman has a water spiritual root, then she definitely has a water spiritual root. Hurry up and tie her up so that we can be saved." Mu Yan's line of sight turns to look at Lu Ruoxuan meaningfully. This young girl seemed to have some ability. She was actually able to tell the attribute of her spirit root. In fact, Mu Yan's spirit root isn't the water spirit root, nor is it any of the 5 elements spirit roots, nor is it a variant spirit root. Instead, it was the one and only moon spiritual root. However, according to Deming Ju's words, the moon spirit root is still one of the 5 elements spirit roots in the beginning. As her cultivation increased, the number of spiritual roots in her body would increase. In the end, he even possessed a variant spiritual root and a chaotic spiritual root. Only when all the spirit roots fused together would it be the true moon spirit root. Now that her cultivation was too low, she only possessed one of the 5 elemental spiritual roots, which was the water spiritual root. However, logically speaking, ordinary people would not be able to tell the attribute of her spirit root from the circulation of her spirit power. He didn't expect Lu Ruoxuan to be able to sense it. Lu Ruoxuan comes into contact with Mayan's line of sight, and her whole body trembles. Chapter 854. Chen Xiuxiu immediately pulls her back and intimately hugs her hand, saying, "This kind of woman is selfish. She doesn't even have the spirit of self-sacrifice. What are you begging her for? Janner, you didn't do anything wrong. Find the person with the water spiritual root. You saved all of our lives." Lu Ruoxuan is still crying, shaking her head and stammering to apologize. "I'm sorry, I really didn't mean it." The other girls are already too lazy to care about Lu Ruoxuan, and they all surround Mayan. "Do you really have the water spiritual root?" Yun Xiang asks aggressively. Mayan raises her brows. "So what if I do?" She has already used her divine sense to ask Qiu what just happened. At this time, she sees the little girl tied to the side with tears of despair on her face, and then looks at these seemingly righteous, but actually disgustingly selfish women. She can't help but smile mockingly. "Since you have the water spiritual root, why didn't you stand up just now? Didn't you hear us just ask who has the water spiritual root? That's right. How could you be so vicious? Selfishly hiding in the corner and not making a sound. Did you want to see us all fall into miserable ends?" Mayan slowly stands up, arms crossed over her chest, and looks at them with a smile that isn't a smile. "What does it have to do with me if you all fall into miserable ends? Why should I make a sound?" "You, how can you speak like that? Which sect are you from? Didn't your master teach you etiquette, justice, honor, and shame?" Mayan is about to laugh out loud. Etiquette, justice, honor, and shame? What kind of etiquette, justice, honor, and shame? Is it the etiquette, justice, honor, and shame of being greedy for life and afraid of death, pushing others to sacrifice themselves? These words are like poking all the girls' Achilles' heel at once. In fact, in the beginning, they also felt guilty and uneasy. However, when they tied up Wei Zi, they thought that as long as two people were sacrificed, they could exchange for their own lives. Their hearts hardened little by little, turning ugly, especially when there are other people accompanying them when they do bad things. They slowly start to convince themselves that they are right, and even convince themselves that doing this is for the sake of morality and justice. This is also something that can't be helped, Wu Fangyi said loudly. Now that we've fallen to such a state, we should help each other and look for an opportunity to escape. The two of you were just a little bit. It's not like you'll really die, but in exchange, all of us will be able to live. Wait for our senior brother to find us. He'll naturally rescue the two of you. At that time, the two of you won't suffer too much of a loss. That's right, that's it. Wu Fangyi's words immediately made the others excited. Looking at your ragged clothes, I can tell that your sect is not very powerful. If you are really trapped here, you can only be a lowly prostitute forever. But if we ignore it, our sect will naturally be able to rescue you as well. Between a moment of innocence and eternal depravity, don't you know what to choose? This time, Mu Yin really laughed out loud. So, I have to thank you? Before her laughter died away, her eyes suddenly darkened. It's said that shameless people are invincible. Today, I've finally seen this ugly face, using the suffering and pain of others in exchange for his own safety. However, they still had to make it sound so dignified, and even wanted the victim to thank them. Chapter 855. Everyone's faces suddenly became extremely ugly. There was the resentment of having their thoughts exposed, and there was also the shame of trying to cover it up. Don't talk nonsense with her. Just tie her up and hand her over. Before he could finish, the door of the room was pushed open with a bang. The knife-scarred man and his underlings strode in. 15 minutes have passed. Have you chosen the person with the water spirit root? He's chosen. He's chosen. Chun Xiuxiu immediately shouted. It's these two people. You quickly take them away. The knife-scarred man looked at Wei Zi, who was tied up. He narrowed his eyes, took a few steps forward, and lifted Wei Zi up. Tears streamed down Wei Zi's face. She wanted to struggle, but she couldn't even speak. The knife-scarred man grabbed the position of her dantian and suddenly grabbed it, circulating his spiritual energy. Wei Zi screamed and groaned in pain. The knife-scarred man laughed out loud. Not bad, not bad. A third-grade water spiritual root is considered to be quite good. I'm sure that Lord will be satisfied. As he spoke, he threw Wei Zi to one of his subordinates. He rolled his eyes. What about the other one? Following Chun Xiuxiu's finger, the knife-scarred man's line of sight falls on Mu Yin, and his pupils suddenly widen. His mouth slightly opened, and after a long while, he excitedly murmured, "Top quality, it's really top quality. If I offer this top quality to him, young Master Ning will definitely be satisfied." As he spoke, he walked towards Mu Yin. He reached out to check her dantian and spirit root. However, before his hand could touch Mayan's body, it was caught. The knife-scarred man raised his head and met a pair of bottomless black eyes. His mind suddenly shivered as he subconsciously sensed danger and took a step back. Mu Yin casually pats off the grass on her body and carelessly says, "Aren't you going to meet the guest? Let's go." Without waiting for the knife-scarred man to react, he walked straight to the door. She didn't look like someone who was going to be defiled as a cauldron, but someone who was going to be a queen. The knife-scarred man has trained so many women who have been forced into prostitution, but he has never seen one like Mayan. For a moment, he was dumbfounded. After a long while, he finally followed up with a serious expression. His gaze landed on Mu Yin without blinking, filled with vigilance. He was a veteran of hundreds of battles and had killed countless people, but the instant he met the young girl's eyes, an invisible fear surged into his heart. "Boss, what's wrong?" Seeing his serious expression, the subordinate couldn't help but approach and ask, "There's something wrong with that woman?" Have you ever seen a woman become a furnace so calm? Haha, maybe she knows that the person she needs to serve is young Master Ning and is eager to hook up with young Master Ning. You should know that even if it's just being a cultivation furnace, becoming young Master Ning's concubine is something that many people dream of. After listening to his subordinate's explanation, the knife-scarred man's heart calmed down. That's right, that was young Master Ning, the person that many people in Minlu Jia wanted to curry favor with. This kind of lowly woman, even if she was to be his cultivation furnace, he would probably be more than happy to have her. The knife-scarred man thinks of Mu Yan's stunning appearance and her water spiritual root. Young Master Ning would certainly be very satisfied. If young Master Ning was satisfied, then his own benefits would naturally not be lacking. Thinking to this point, the knife-scarred man no longer hesitated and laughed. Mu Yin and Wei Zi were quickly taken to a room. There were many beautiful dresses arranged in the room. Chapter 856. The knife-scarred man has someone untie the ropes on Wei Zi. His eyes wander back and forth between the two, then he unhurriedly says, "If you know what's appropriate, then clean yourselves up and find some beautiful clothes to change into. After an hour, I'll come to pick you up to meet Ning Xiao. If you have the ability to gain Ning Xiao's favor, even if you're just a furnace, there will certainly be benefits for you. But if you dare to play tricks and make trouble for me, I'll have someone strip you naked, tie you up outside, and let all the men humiliate and trample on you. You'd better think clearly about whether you can bear the price of rebelling against our Tian Xiang Lu." Jia jia jia. The door is slammed shut, leaving only Mu Yin and Wei Zi in the room. Wei Zi couldn't bear it anymore, collapsing on the ground and wailing. Mu Yin, on the other hand, is very satisfied. She directly enters the wing room and happily uses the bathwater prepared by Tian Xiang Lu to wash herself clean. Then, she finds some clothes that won't get in the way and puts them on. When she comes out, she finds that the little girl is still lying on the ground, crying so hard that she can't catch her breath. Mu Yin casually takes an apple from the coffee table and takes a bite. Then, she sits down in a languid manner. Her gaze falls on Wei Zi, who is crying in sorrow and despair. "Little girl, haven't you cried enough?" Wei Zi raises her head, revealing two eyes that are swollen like walnuts. Sobbing and sniffling, she says, "I don't want to become someone else's furnace, boo-hoo. I don't want to be defiled. I don't want to become a prostitute, boo-hoo. Kacha, kacha, kacha." Wei Zi is crying her heart out, but Mu Yin is happily nibbling on the apple. Her posture as she sits on the chair is weak and boneless, but there's an indescribable magnificence that captivates people's hearts and souls. Wei Zi finally can't cry anymore. Her red and swollen eyes look at Mu Yin with confusion, and she asks in a small voice, "Sister, aren't you afraid?" "Afraid of what?" We were caught to receive guests." Wei Zi thinks of her own experience, and she can't help but burst into tears again. "We'll still become someone else's furnace," Mu Yin sneers, her face carrying a disdainful arrogance. "In this world, the person who can force me to do things that I don't want to do hasn't been born yet." After her rebirth, she had always been a person who would destroy everything indiscriminately. Even in the Shin musician trial space, when the Tian Mo Qin wanted to control her, she would rather die than compromise. Even if Di Mingju was that strong in the beginning, he never thought of forcing her. In this world, who could force her to do something she did not want to do? Worst comes to worst, we'll all perish together. When Wei Zi heard her bold words, she was dumbfounded. While he was shocked, he also felt a hint of envy. After a while, he murmured, But this is the famous Heavenly Fragrance restaurant of Min Lu Domain." Hearing this, Mu Yin was a little interested. He casually threw the fruit core away and asked, "What is the background of the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant? Why are you all so afraid when you hear about this Heavenly Fragrance restaurant?" The Heavenly Fragrance restaurant is the property of the Ning family. It was opened by the Ning family's eldest young master. The Ning family is the most powerful family in the Min Lu domain. No sect or faction can contend with them. Chapter 857. Young Master Ning. Heavenly Fragrance Building. Mayan mutters, the corners of her mouth curling up into a cold arc, and her eyes are as dark as water. You guys are out of luck. When she first arrived at the Xiaojin continent, Mayan could be said to be clueless. Plus, Xiaobao is missing, and Diming Ju is uncontactable, so she's in a bad mood. This young Master Ning actually bumps into her. Hee. He dares to make her, Mayan, a furnace? If she doesn't peel off a layer of this young Master Ning's skin, her name, Mayan, will be written upside down. Mayan still wants to get more information about the Xiaojin continent from Wei Zi's mouth, but the door is suddenly knocked open. The knife-scarred man and his men enter in a line. Seeing that Mayan has already tidied herself up, he shows a satisfied expression. Sure enough, this slut wants to take the initiative to seduce young Master Ning. But when he looks at Wei Zi, he immediately frowns in dissatisfaction. Slut, didn't I tell you to tidy yourself up? What are you doing? Hee. You really won't shed tears until you see the coffin. Come, take off this little slut's clothes for me. Don't. Wei Zi screams, desperately hiding behind Mayan, her mouth begging incessantly. I'm begging you to spare me. I'm willing to exchange. I'm willing to exchange woo-woo. The knife-scarred man's men are about to grab her, but Mayan stops them. She says unhurriedly, didn't she say she would exchange? Still not getting out and waiting. Who do you think you are, you slut, to dare talk to lousy like that? The knife-scarred man's men fly into a rage, slapping Mayan. However, before his hand could touch Mayan's body, he suddenly feels a huge force that flips him over. His whole body heavily hits the stone pillar, and his body twitches in pain. Mayan casually claps her hands and looks at the knife-scarred man. Didn't I say that we can't let young Master Ning wait for too long? Still not getting out? You slut, you dare to be so arrogant. The knife-scarred man grabs the man who was about to rush over, takes a deep look at Mayan, and turns to leave. Wei Zi was a little dumbfounded. She looked at Mu Yin, then looked at the knife-scarred man and the others who were leaving. She revealed an expression of admiration. Sister, you're so amazing. Mu Yin grabs her collar and throws her directly into the water. You stink. Wash yourself clean. Sure enough, she still preferred those fragrant, pretty, and gossipy girls in the Netherflame Valley. Wei Zi was so embarrassed that she wanted to find a hole to hide in. These people were captured and locked in a broken house. The house was full of dust and bugs, and the smell was terrible. On top of that, the girls were crying, throwing a tantrum, and being frightened. Naturally, none of them were clean. However, Wei Zi still felt extremely embarrassed to be despised by her beautiful sister. She even forgot about her current situation and hurriedly rubbed off the dirt on her body before putting on her clothes and walking out. Outside the house, the knife-scarred man held his waist and whispered in his ear, Boss, this girl is too hot. Should we add something to her? To avoid accidentally injuring young Master Ning. Chapter 858. What's more, our young Master Ning doesn't like docile and obedient women, but likes spicy ones. I'm really afraid that this woman isn't spicy enough and will grovel in front of young Master Ning. Things that are delivered to your doorstep are always worthless. Hearing this, the knife-scarred man's subordinates immediately understood and let out wretched laughter. They immediately remembered the chaste women that they had sent to young Master Ning several times. It was as if they were about to kill someone. After that, the scene in the room was even more bloody and tragic. But young Master Ning was very satisfied and instead rewarded them with many good things. Just as they were imagining the scene of young Master Ning rewarding them with treasures, the door to the room was opened. Mu Yin swaggered out of the room. Wei Zi timidly followed behind her. The knife-scarred man's gaze swept over Mu Yan's exquisite and flawless face, his eyes once again revealing a touch of amazement. Then he turned around and led them to the east end of Heavenly Fragrance Restaurant. Soon, the group stopped in front of the door. Young Master Ning, the furnace you wanted is here. Send it in. The door creaked open, and Mu Yin and Wei Zi were directly pushed in. The incense in the room was so strong that it was suffocating, with a faint hint of sweetness. Mu Yin looked up and saw two men sitting in the room. One of them was slightly plump, with a kind face, about 30 years old. At first glance, he looked like a simple and honest young man. But as long as one saw the evil and tyrannical flash in his eyes, they would know that this person was not a good person. The other man was skinny, with a wretched appearance. Although they were also sitting, they kept nodding and bowing to the slightly plump man, trying to please him in every way possible. When they saw Mu Yin and Wei Zi coming in, the two of them looked over. When he saw Mu Yan's face, the skinny man sucked in a breath of cold air and almost blurted out, "There's actually such a stunner in this world." The amazement and greed in his eyes almost overflowed. But very quickly, the skinny man realized something and immediately turned to the slightly plump man with a flattering smile. "Young Master Ning is really lucky. Such a stunning beauty was actually found by your subordinates." It turned out that this slightly plump man was the young master of the Ning family, Ning Yuqing. Ning Yuqing's gaze landed on Mu Yin, his face twitching uncontrollably. That gaze made Mu Yin extremely uncomfortable. This man's gaze was too presumptuous and sinister, as if he was using his gaze to strip off her naked clothes. "Tell this young master, what is your name?" Ning Yuqing asked in a rare moment of condescension. He originally thought that Mayan would be overwhelmed by the favor, or perhaps in fear and trepidation. Unexpectedly, Mu Yin casually walked in, found a chair, and sat down as if she was strolling in her own back garden. Her sitting posture was languid and wanton, but for some reason, her entire body exuded a luxurious aura. Then, she looked at Ning Yuqing and said nonchalantly, "Who the hell are you? Do you think you deserve to know my name?" Ning Yuqing's first reaction was not anger, but shock and disbelief. He was the young master of the Ning family and had played with countless women. Even the most chaste women would cry and beg for mercy when they were presented to him. They were terrified and desperate. Chapter 859. Impudent. The skinny man on the side couldn't sit still anymore. He roared angrily. "Do you know who this young Master Ning is? How dare you speak to young Master Ning like that? You slut! Are you tired of living?" Saying that, the skinny man raised his hand, about to slap Mayan. Just as the skinny man approached Mayan, his hand about to fall on the young girl's fair, flawless face. Mayan slowly raised her head. A pair of deep peach blossom eyes met the skinny man's eyes. In a split second, the skinny man couldn't help but shiver. He stiffly froze in place. Those are clearly a pair of very beautiful eyes, but he seems to see an abyss of hell, a sea of white bones and blood. A drop of cold sweat rolled down his forehead. His hands and feet seemed to be frozen, unable to move. At this time, Ning Yuqing's voice came, "Enough, Tianlei. Don't shout about killing. What if you scare the little beauty? Come back." Fang Tianlei's body stiffened for a moment. In the end, he didn't say anything. He took a few steps back and stood behind Ning Yuqing. Looking at Mayan, his eyes were full of seriousness and wariness. Ning Yuqing didn't notice anything wrong. He slightly narrowed his eyes, reaching out to touch Mayan's face. "Little beauty, your character is hot enough. This young master likes it. This young master is in a good mood today. Why don't you follow this young master back to the Ning family? You don't need to receive guests in this heavenly fragrance brothel anymore. How about it?" Mayan slapped his hand away, her face full of disgust. She said, "You like it? It's a pity I don't. Who would like a stinky and disgusting pig?" Ning Yuqing's confident smile froze in an instant. The fat on his face trembled, then twisted into a sinister anger. "Slut! Don't be so shameless." Saying that, he ruthlessly slapped her. Mayan suddenly felt a gust of wind, accompanied by a scorching heat wave, blowing towards her. She didn't even think about it. Her feet tapped, the chair scraped the ground, making a squeaking sound, and flew far away. She barely dodged Ning Yuqing's attack. Ning Yuqing's face darkened when he saw that his attack had failed, but he didn't continue his attack. Instead, the corners of his mouth curled up, revealing a cruel smile. "Looks like you don't know how to be a furnace, or how to be a good pet of this young master. Tianlei, go teach her well. Let her see with her own eyes what the consequences of going against this young master are." When Feng Tianlei heard that, his gaze immediately fell on Wei Zi. Then, he revealed a sinister smile, bowed to Ning Yuqing and said, "Young Master Ning, rest assured. Tianlei will definitely let this bitch know what's good for her. Defying young Master Ning will bring her a miserable end. Young Master Ning, just wait and see. In a while, this woman will obediently crawl in front of you and beg you to pamper her." Feng Tianlei was the bastard son of a small subsidiary family of the Ning family. Because he managed to curry favor with Ning Yuqing, his status skyrocketed. Today, he had come to the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant to enjoy the water spiritual root, which was a gift from Ning Yuqing. Ning Yuqing was one of the best of the Ning family's younger generation. At such a young age, he had already reached the 7th stage of fasting. In order to prepare for the Xiujin continent's grand event, the sect selection, the Ning family had been working hard to provide him with all kinds of cultivation resources, just so that he could reach the 8th stage of fasting as soon as possible. Chapter 860. In order to speed up his cultivation, he has been taking a lot of fire elixirs. But no matter how good the elixirs are, they all have side effects. Taking too many in a short period of time will cause damage to his meridians and dantian. In order to better absorb the fire elixirs, Ning Yuqing came up with a different method. It was to defile those talented female cultivators with water spiritual roots, using them as cultivation cauldrons to replenish yang energy. At the same time, the fire poison in his body will be transferred to these female cultivators. It was not hard to imagine how miserable the fate of these female cultivators with water spiritual roots who were defiled by Ning Yuqing would be. In this period of time, the number of female cultivators that Ning Yuqing has defiled can be said to be countless. The fire poison in his body is also almost completely removed. So this time, when he came to Heavenly Fragrance Brothel to choose female cultivators, he brought Feng Tianlei along. To put it nicely, he wanted to let him enjoy it together. But Ning Yuqing did not expect that he would meet such a stunning beauty like Mu Yin, so much that he could not bear to waste her. When Wei Zi saw Feng Tianlei coming over, she was scared out of her wits. She wanted to run towards Mu Yin, but her knees gave way and she fell to the ground. "No, don't come over. Woo woo woo. No." Feng Tianlei did not care about her begging and crying. He rushed over and grabbed her clothes and tore them. With a ripping sound, the outer clothes were torn, revealing the smooth skin underneath. Feng Tianlei swallowed, his eyes filled with violence and greed. Although he also wanted to taste that stunning beauty, it was obvious that eldest young Master Ning had his eyes on her. He could not eat meat, but drinking some soup was not bad. What's more, although this little girl looked young and immature, her skin was as smooth as ice, and as smooth as jade, making people drool. If he could leave green and purple marks on her skin. When Feng Tianlei thought of that scene, he felt his lower abdomen tighten, and with a roar, he threw Wei Zi to the ground. "No, don't touch me. Save me, sister, save me." Feng Tianlei laughed sinisterly. "Ha ha, scream all you want. The louder you scream, the more fun I will have. Later, when you are under me, make sure to scream even more." Saying that, his evil claws reached for Wei Zi's underwear. Seeing that her clothes were about to be ripped off, her chastity would be lost. Wei Zi shed tears of despair. However, in the next moment, Feng Tianlei's blood-curdling scream suddenly rang in his ears. Then, Wei Zi felt her body lighten, and the demon that was pressing down on her disappeared. She was pulled up from the ground, and a robe was gently draped over her shoulders. Wei Zi raised her head in a daze and looked at the beautiful girl standing beside her with teary eyes. Realizing that she was saved, Wei Zi could no longer hold it in and burst into tears. "What's the use of crying?" Mu Yin presses on the top of her head. Her tone is unkind, but her movements are very gentle, To deal with this kind of scum who is worse than pigs and dogs, you should directly cripple her. Feng Tianlei cuts a sorry figure as he climbs up from the ground. His chin is still aching from Mayan's kick. He glanced at Ning Yuqing and saw that Ning Yuqing was calmly watching from the side, as if he had no intention of interfering. His face instantly turned ferocious and he sneered, "Little whore, do you really think I can't beat you? Just now, I was just showing mercy to the fairer sex. Since you don't know what's good for you time and time again, don't blame me." Chapter 861. Feng Tianlei is startled, but he doesn't have time to react. There's a sudden flash in front of him, followed by a cracking sound in his ears, followed by an indescribable heart-tearing pain in his lower body. "Ah!" Feng Tianlei screams, clutching his crotch and collapsing. The intense pain causes him to roll on the ground, cold sweat dripping from his forehead. "You!" He roars like a trapped beast, all the spiritual power in his body surging. He's going to give Mu Yin a fatal blow. However, without waiting for him to launch his attack, Mu Yin has already lifted her foot, casually stepping on Feng Tianlei's lower body. Crack! Crack! The sound of bones breaking one after another makes Feng Tianlei's whole body seem to stop. His body keeps twitching. The hand that was originally covering his crotch hangs down, from the wrist down, including the bones of his fingers and palms. They're all shattered. Not to mention his descendant root. This time, it's really and truly become a waste. Feng Tianlei's eyes are wide open. His mouth is wide open, as if he wants to scream, but not a single sound comes out. Like a stranded fish on the verge of death, he can't even breathe. Mu Yin looks down at Feng Tianlei's frightened expression, slowly smiling. Is it fun to trample on women? Is it fun to listen to women scream and beg for mercy? Feng Tianlei trembles, his throat making a cracking sound. Spare my life. Heh, since it's so fun, then go to hell and play with those female ghosts that died because of you. As soon as she says that, a long sword appears in Mu Yan's hand. The sword flashes, piercing Feng Tianlei's heart without hesitation. Feng Tianlei doesn't even have a chance to make a sound. His eyes roll back, and he dies. The room falls into a deathly silence. Wei Zi even forgets to cry. Her red and swollen eyes look at Mu Yin, then at the breathless Feng Tianlei, her mouth gaping, unable to make a sound. Clap, clap, clap. The room suddenly resounds with a rhythmic applause. Mu Yin turns to look, only to see that Ning Yuqing isn't angry. Instead, he's applauding with an appreciative smile. But those squinting eyes reveal a greedy and evil light. He's actually at the 9th stage of the body refining realm. No wonder he dares to be so arrogant. Ning Yuqing walked towards Mu Yin step by step, his eyes moving from her picturesque face, to her slender neck, to her curvaceous body. The lust in his eyes was overflowing. Very good, very good. This young master is getting more and more satisfied with you. As Ning Yuqing spoke, he made a grabbing motion in the air, and the wine on the table appeared in his hand. He smiles in a cultured and refined manner, handing the glass of wine to Mu Yin. This young master will give you another chance. Drink this glass of wine and obediently crawl over to serve this young master. This young master guarantees that even if you become a human cauldron, I will spare your life. Moreover, from now on, I will let you enjoy endless glory, splendor, and wealth. This cup of wine was the specialty of the Heavenly Fragrance Restaurant. It had an aphrodisiac effect, which could make a chastity girl obedient. However, Ning Yuqing was usually unwilling to use it. This was because he enjoyed the sight of those women screaming miserably and begging for mercy under his abuse. However, seeing Mayan today, it makes all the blood in his body boil. Not only did this girl have a stunning appearance, but she was also extremely talented. Chapter 862. Ning Yuqing felt that if he had a taste of such a beauty, he would not be interested in those ordinary women anymore. It would be a pity if he accidentally spoiled her. A low laugh came out from Mu Yan's mouth. Following that, a pair of slender, smooth, and well-defined hands grasped the blue and white porcelain cup and took the wine cup. Ning Yuqing looked at the pair of beautiful eyes that looked like they were carved by the gods. He could not help but swallow his saliva. His chest felt like it was on fire. He could not wait to pounce on her and ravage her. But at the same time, he felt an indescribable satisfaction in his heart. As expected, no matter how ruthless this woman was, in front of him, young Master Ning, she would obediently listen to him. Mu Yin took the wine cup and twirled it in her hand. A bright smile appeared on her face. Young Master Ning, how many women have you given this wine to? Those ordinary women are not worthy of this young master's wine. Ning Yuqing showed a disdainful smile. Step by step he walked closer to Mu Yin. Towards other women, this young master would casually play with them and throw them away, or give them to those lowly servants or customers of heavenly fragrance brothel. But beauty, you are different. This young master cannot bear to hurt you. So I gave you this cup of wine. That is to say, you have defiled a lot of women? Heh. In this Min Lu Jia, as long as it is a woman this young master wants to play with, there is no woman I can't get. Mu Yin slowly raised her head, her gaze from the wine cup to Ning Yuqing's face. Looks like, from the beginning, I decided to take your dog lives. It was not a bad decision. Ning Yuqing was startled. He did not react. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and felt a sharp pain in his tongue and teeth. A huge wine cup, along with the mixed wine inside, was sent into his mouth. Then, Mu Yin raised her leg and kicked his lower abdomen. Ning Yuqing's entire body was sent flying, crashing heavily into a pillar. The violent impact caused the wine cup in his mouth to shatter, cutting his tongue and oral cavity. All of a sudden, Ning Yuqing let out a painful howl, and blood flowed out from his mouth and teeth. Outside the room, the knife-scarred man and his men heard the commotion inside. They could not help but be speechless. I did not expect this girl to be so ruthless. This commotion is even louder than that chaste woman who was played to death last time. Heh! The louder the commotion, the more suffering she will suffer. Young Master Ning loves to abuse these kinds of girls. Later when we go in, that woman might already be in a terrible state. Such a beauty, it is such a pity. Haha, who asked her to have such bad luck? Inside the room, Ning Yuqing crawled up from the ground with difficulty. This time, there was no smile on his face, only shock and malevolent resentment remained. You slut, how dare you attack this young master? As he spoke, blood continued to gush out of his mouth, causing his voice to become unclear. Ning Yuqing spat out the blood in his mouth and stared fixedly at Mu Yin. In the next moment, a powerful spiritual energy surged out from his body. You refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Do you really think that you can be arrogant in front of this young master, just because you're at the 9th stage of body refining? He clenched his right hand into a fist and channeled his spiritual power. Immediately, a blazing flame appeared on his fist. This young master will let you know the consequences of resisting me. The air in the room seemed to be boiling hot in an instant. Chapter 863. The rolling waves of air have already rushed towards Mayan, blowing her clothes and hair up. Mu Yan's eyes narrow. She raises her hand, and a grayish-black zither appears in her hand. She plucks the strings lightly, and a melodious melody immediately comes out. Ning Yuqing sneers. What? Are you afraid now? You want to flirt with this young master and enjoy yourself? But it's too late. Mu Yin holds the zither with one hand, casually plucking the strings as if playing a pipa. Hearing this, she chuckles. Young Master Ning doesn't want to hear it? This young master wants to hear a slut like you crying and begging for mercy under me. As soon as his voice falls, Ning Yuqing's fist suddenly explodes. The turbulent air waves cause the furniture in the room to crash to the ground. Wei Zi, who is hiding in the corner, is almost blown away. She clings to a nearby pillar to stabilize herself. Even so, her hair and clothes still felt like they were being roasted by the flames. Her skin is burning, and she can't help but let out a low moan. Wei, who was just swept away by the airwaves, is already like this, not to mention Mu Yin, who was directly hit by the raging flame fist. Ning Yuqing slowly withdraws his fist, his face showing a proud and cruel expression. However, the scene in front of him makes him dumbfounded. The girl in front of him is still standing, her hands lightly plucking the strings of the zither. That expression, that posture, even that movement, there is not the slightest change. Languid, carefree, as if she doesn't care about anything. This is impossible. Ning Yuqing can't help but roar. Even his grandfather praised his raging flame fist to be powerful. Among the cultivators of the same cultivation level in Min Lu Jia, which one of them is not prepared to face his raging flame fist with great difficulty? But this woman is only at the 9th stage of body refining. How could she so easily deal with it? Ning Yuqing's gaze suddenly falls on the zither. Following the sound of the zither, there is a faint white light emitting from the zither. It envelopes Mu Yin and the zither together. Divine hands weave, which could even barely block a blow from the god-slaying tribulation. How could it be unable to block a mere level 7 fasting, roaring flame fist? It was that ancient zither. There was something strange about that zither. Ning Yuqing's eyes lit up. His mind turns at lightning speed, pretending to be shocked and in disbelief to divert Mayan's attention. Just as Mu Yin was about to speak, he suddenly roared and pounced over, snatching the zither from Mu Yan's hands. Ha ha ha, little bitch, you can be so arrogant because of this zither of yours, right? Now that you don't have this zither, what are you going to do? Mu Yin is really surprised for a moment. Because Ning Yuqing's action just now was very fast, she didn't expect that Ning Yuqing would actually snatch the Tian Mo Qin, so she didn't have time to react. Ning Yuqing looked at the Tian Mo Qin in his hand. He had just witnessed how powerful the Tian Mo Qin was. If it could even block his raging flame fist, then it would be a rare treasure. It might even be a 4th-grade spirit artifact or above. In the cultivation continent, spiritual tools are divided into 9 grades. Above spirit artifacts were divine artifacts. However, in the cultivation continent, divine artifacts were treasures that one could only dream of but not obtain. Above the divine artifacts were the heavenly divine artifacts, the divine king artifacts, the sacred ancestral artifacts, and even the heavenly divine artifacts. Chapter 864. Min Lu Jia is the weakest region in the Xiuzhen continent. Here, 3rd grade and above spirit tools are priceless, enough to help a family move unhindered. So when he thinks that the zither in his hand might be a 4th-grade spirit tool, Ning Yuqing's eyes shine with greed. With a 4th-grade spirit tool, his chances of getting a good result in the sex selection will be even higher. However, when he tries to pluck the strings, he only hears an ear-piercing noise, nothing else. Ning Yuqing doesn't believe it. He even infuses his spiritual power into it. But a broken zither is a broken zither. There is no change, only that ear-piercing noise, as if mocking his stupidity. How is it? Have you played enough? Do you need me to teach you? He doesn't know when, but the girl's clear laughter comes close. Ning Yuqing is startled and immediately becomes furious. What's so strange about this spirit tool? If you obediently tell me, this young master may spare your life. Mu Yan's mouth slowly curls up, a bright smile blooming on her snow-white face. You want to know? Then I'll show you now. As soon as she says that, Mu Yan crooks her finger. The zither in Ning Yuqing's arms moves up and down on its own, producing a melodious music. Along with the music, sharp air blades scatter in all directions. Zither Sound Blade, Level 4 Skill, Activate. Ning Yuqing is so close, how can he avoid it? In a split second, he feels a sharp pain in his face, chest, and abdomen. The Tian Mo Qin in his arms has already flown up to the sky, returning to Mu Yan's hand. Mu Yan has just received the Tian Mo Qin when she hears Qi Huang's annoying voice. Heh, even the most precious treasures in the Xiuzhen continent are not worthy to carry this sage's shoes. This idiot. He thinks that the Tian Emochin is only a fourth-grade spirit tool. He should just die. Mu Yan's expression stiffens. She stops her attack on Ning Yuqing. Qi Huang, you're awake? Yes. This sage consumed his primordial spirit to activate Divine Weaves the Heavens, high-level defense, allowing you to escape the fatal blow of the god-slaying tribulation. Don't forget this sovereign's kindness. The youngster's voice carries an arrogance that's as it should be, and it's asking for a beating as it rings in Mayan's ears. Mu Yan, however, chuckles in a low voice, temporarily breaching the contract on the battlefield, and even releasing my Xiao Bao in a moment of life and death crisis. Qi Huang, you actually want me to not forget your kindness? In the space, Qi Huang raises his eyes and looks at the phantom formed by Mu Yan's spiritual form. Meeting that pair of smiling yet not smiling peach blossom eyes, he suddenly feels his scalp tighten, and he unconsciously takes a step back. June Mayan, I'm telling you, Bin Zun did that in order to save you. You better not act recklessly. Before Qi Huang could finish speaking, Mayan's hand has already stroked one of the strings. At the very end of the string, there's a sudden pluck. Ouch! Qi Huang screams miserably, and his primordial spirit tumbles to the ground, rolling around. Ha 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 ha. June Mayan, you bastard. Ha 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 ha. You actually dare to do this to me. Ha 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 ha. I won't let you go. Ha 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 ha. I won't let you off. Ha 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 ha. Chapter 865. The youth on the grass laughs until his clothes and hair are disheveled, beads of water seeping out of his flowing phoenix eyes. His whole person looks like he's just been ravaged, beautiful and alluring, making people feel pity for him. Mayan's hand finally stops plucking the strings, slowly moving in front of Qi Huang. Qi Huang's eyes are red, his whole person appearing delicate and pitiful. Seeing her approach, he glares at her with grief and indignation. June Mayan, you bastard. This hatred. Bin Zun will definitely take revenge. Mayan has a smile that isn't a smile, her fingers pressing on the end of the strings. Are you sure? Qi Huang instantly wilts. He shrinks his body, purses his lips, and angrily stops talking. Just then, the melodious sound of the zither rings out again. Qi Huang only feels a shiver run through his body. But this time, it's not a laughter that wants to take his life. Instead, an indescribable refreshment and strength circulates through his whole body, making him feel so comfortable that he almost sighs. The next moment, the girl's soft voice rings in his ears. But in any case, thank you this time, Qi Huang. Thank you for letting me live, and thank you for not letting me and Xiaobao be separated by life and death. Qi Huang stares blankly. He jerks his head up, only to find that Mayan's figure is no longer in the space. He stretches out his hand and looks at his palm. The palm that was originally so transparent that it was almost invisible has solidified quite a bit at this time. His whole body is surging with a power that doesn't belong to him, but it's so warm, so gentle. Qi Huang blankly stares at his palm for a while. Suddenly, he flips over and throws himself on the grass. He rolls several times on the grass before burying his face in the ground. In a muffled voice, he says to himself, "Don't think that Bin Zun won't retaliate like this, humph." Mayan's divine sense leaves the space, and her 5 fingers play on the strings, her heart very satisfied. Although the Tian Emochin hasn't been repaired or upgraded after going through the god-slaying calamity this time, the connection between her and the Tian Emochin has deepened a bit. Now, she can already control Qi Huang's senses with the strings. She can also shield Qi Huang's senses during battle. In other words, even if Qi Huang's soul leaves the Tian Emochin, he will no longer be affected by her stroking the strings. But if she wants to punish or help Qi Huang, she can achieve it through different spiritual power control and playing. The corner of Mu Yan's mouth hooks up into a wicked smile. Little guy, let's see if you still dare to break the contract and act recklessly in the future. But as soon as he raised his head, the smile on his face disappeared. Because she discovered that in the instant that she was punishing Qi Huang, that grandson Ning Yuqing had actually escaped. The fact that Ning Yuqing had run away meant that he had alerted the entire Heavenly Fragrance restaurant. Sure enough, a moment later, she heard Ning Yuqing screaming like a pig being slaughtered. "Help! Help! Someone wants to kill this young master." Mu Yin sneered. Her figure flashed and appeared outside the door. Trying to escape? Calling for help? Then this young lady will clean up this filthy, Heavenly Fragrance restaurant in one go. The knife-scarred man and his subordinates were standing guard not far from the house. It wasn't that they didn't notice the commotion inside, as well as the scorching heat waves, but he just looks at each other and smiles wretchedly, his face filled with sympathy and pity for Mayan. It seemed that this hot chick did have some ability. She actually made young Master Ning use his raging flame fist. It's just a pity that her ice skin and jade bones have already been burnt by young Master Ning's raging flame fist. Young Master Ning really doesn't know how to have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. Chapter 866. He vaguely shouts, "Help! Help! That crazy woman wants to kill me. Quickly, quickly inform the guards of the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant." When they see clearly who this bloodied person is, the knife-scarred man and his men are completely dumbfounded. Young Ning, eldest young master? How could he be injured like this? The sound of movement comes from inside the room. Ning Yuqing is so scared that he pisses his pants. He frantically pushes away the knife-scarred man and his men to escape. Stop her! Stop her for this young master! Ah, help! Before the knife-scarred man can react, he sees a slender and pretty figure slowly walking out of the room. She is holding an old zither in her hands. Her small, picturesque face has a lazy and faint smile. She slowly walks over, the wind ruffling her clothes, like a fairy descending to the mortal world. The knife-scarred man and his men are simply dumbfounded. What is going on? You, what are you? Before the knife-scarred man can finish his words, Mayan's fingers are already plucking the zither strings. The airflow fluctuates, and an invisible blade breaks through the air. The knife-scarred man only feels a pain in his chest, his body swaying, and he has already softly fallen down. Mayan says with a smile that isn't a smile, "Just now, didn't you say that you want me to be obedient? What are you going to do to me if I'm not obedient?" "You, who are you?" The knife-scarred man's men look at the dead body of their boss. Then they look at the girl's beautiful face, her bright smile, and there is no longer a trace of charming and gentle desire in their hearts, only full of fear. Do you know that this is the Ning family's property? You." The men's stammering voices filled with infinite fear, unable to complete their story. Mayan can't listen anymore. Her hands suddenly pluck the zither strings. This time, it's not just one or two swords that fly out, but hundreds and thousands. These scum who were just fiercely abusing and defiling young girls, at this moment, don't even have the chance to make a sound, as the sound blades penetrate them, turning them into a hornet's nest. Mayan turns her wrist. The Tian Emochin that she was originally holding turns around, turning into 7 colored long swords, and then combine into one, becoming the crystal clear. 7 absolute swords, falling into her palm. The tip of her sword was pointed to the ground, and the corners of her mouth curled up into a faint smile. Step by step, she chased after Ning Yuqing. If the people of Hell Flame Valley were here and saw Mayan's expression, they would know that everyone in Heavenly Fragrance House is going to be out of luck. However, who told them to be so blind as to bump into Mu Yin when she was in a bad mood? They deserve to be annihilated. In the house behind her, Wei Zi hid in the doorway, looking at the direction Mu Yin left in a daze, her eyes full of awe and worship. How could there be such a handsome and powerful woman in this world? If one day, she could be half as powerful as this little sister, how great would that be? The Heavenly Fragrant restaurant had been in business for several decades, but there had never been a day where it was in such a mess and in such a miserable state. The guests who had been intimate and having fun inside had long since been scared out of their wits and had disappeared without a trace. On the walkway outside the room, there were dead, injured, and dying bodies lying everywhere. These corpses were basically the heavenly fragrant restaurant's guards, pimps, and even Ning Yuqing's personal guards. The innocent prostitutes were frightened when they saw such a bloody massacre. Chapter 867. Ning Yuqing's body was covered in blood. His hair was a mess, and he was in a sorry state. He was protected by the guards of Heavenly Fragrance Restaurant and his own guards. But there was not a shred of peace on his face, only fear. Trash. Trash. There were so many of them, but they couldn't even stop a woman. There were more than 100 people in Heavenly Fragrance Restaurant, but they couldn't stop a mere girl. But when he thought of the terrifying zither in that woman's hands, all of Ning Yuqing's anger and hatred were replaced by fear. That madwoman, she doesn't want to live. Ning Yuqing gritted his teeth and cursed. Is there still no news from the people we sent to inform the Ning family? The guard next to him was about to answer, when a slender figure suddenly appeared from a corner not far away. The girl was wearing a lake blue long dress. Her eyebrows were like snow, and her face was beautiful. When she slowly walked over, it was like a tranquil and beautiful ancient painting. However, none of the people present were shaken when they saw this painting. Instead, they were filled with terror. When Ning Yuqing saw the person, his legs uncontrollably trembled. Extreme fear caused the fat on his face to tremble. Slut, you don't go too far, I am the young master of the Ning family. If you kill me, the Ning family will not let you off. Ning Yuqing shouted fiercely, but in the end, he couldn't help but beg for mercy. If you are willing to let me go, I promise not to pursue the matter, and I will make the Ning family send compensation. The girl in front of him tilted her head, as if she was considering send compensation. Ning Yuqing's heart was in his throat. I promise that the compensation will be to your satisfaction. Mu Yin slowly blooms into a smile. What a pity. Compared to an apology, I want more. Your life. As soon as she finished speaking, her figure suddenly disappeared. The next moment, the cold tip of the sword pointed straight at Ning Yuqing. The wind howled. Killing intent filled the sky. Ah! Ning Yuqing screamed, desperately grabbing a guard beside him to block in front of him. The long sword pierced through the guard's flesh, killing him instantly. But the tip of the sword still cut through Ning Yuqing's clothes and cut through his flesh. The bone-chilling cold seeped into his blood vessels, scaring him out of his wits. Mu Yin flew back to where she was standing and looked at Ning Yuqing, who was unharmed. She said regretfully, "He is still alive. Young Master Ning is really lucky." Ning Yuqing was trembling all over, and at this moment, he saw Wei Zi hiding in a corner. He immediately shouted excitedly, "Take that woman, quick! Take that woman as a hostage!" Wei Zi, the guard beside him, shouted, "Wei Zi!" Wei Zi screamed, screaming, "Wei Zi! Wei Zi!" Wei Zi was shocked. The guard was moved, but Wei Zi Wei was shocked. The long sword in his hand changes back into the Tian Emo Qin in a flash. The sound of the zither resounds, and the blade of the sword flies. The guard was in midair and couldn't even dodge. In an instant, he was riddled with holes. Mu Yin leaps up, grabs Wei Zi's collar, and pulls her to her side. Wei Zi Wei and Mu of Mu, yes SS Qing, Mu of Yut. Mu Yin didn't care about her, and looked at Ning Yuqing coldly. Ning Yuqing almost fainted in fright when he saw her piercing glare. Chapter 868. This time, everyone's eyes were attracted. They saw a few girls in ragged clothes, trying to escape from the corridor behind Ning Yuqing. But one of them accidentally tripped and made a sound, which was noticed by Ning Yuqing. These people, coincidentally, were Lu Ruoxuan and the others who were locked up in the house with Mu Yin. The commotion in Heavenly Fragrance Brothel was so loud that even Lu Ruoxuan and the others who were locked up in the house heard it. In order to deal with Mu Yin, the people guarding them also left. So Lu Ruoxuan and the others secretly broke the door lock, wanting to escape. But they did not expect that they would be discovered by Ning Yuqing just as they were about to escape. And the one who accidentally tripped and made a sound was Chen Xiuxiu, the one who caused the most trouble. When the Madam of Heavenly Fragrance Brothel next to Ning Yuqing saw this group of people, her originally panicked face turned into a look of joy. Young Master Ning, these people were captured together with that demoness. Ning Yuqing's eyes lit up and immediately waved his hand to get the group of people arrested. His face finally revealed a look of relief. This crazy woman would care about the life and death of that little girl. Naturally, she would not leave these women to die. And he only needed to delay until the Ning family arrived. Then this crazy woman would be at his mercy. That powerful zither would naturally belong to him. Until now, Ning Yuqing still believed that the reason why Mu Yin was so powerful was because of the zither in her hands. But the secret of the zither must be dug out from this crazy woman's mouth. Don't move. Ning Yuqing suddenly grabbed Chen Xiuxiu's neck and roared at Mu Yin. If you move again, I will kill these women. Mu Yin's footsteps really stopped. But it was different from the anger and unwillingness that Ning Yuqing had imagined. The girl who was standing not far away just crossed her arms, looking at them with a smile that was not a smile. If you want to kill them, just kill them. What does it have to do with me? Ning Yuqing's face suddenly froze. She actually did not care about the life and death of these women? Chen Xiuxiu was so scared that her face turned pale, and she screamed. How can you do this? Quickly save me. Save me. I don't want to die. Ning Yuqing's guards also placed their weapons on the necks of the other women and looked at Mu Yin threateningly. These women felt the pain and fear of the blades cutting through the skin on their necks. They were scared out of their wits. Lu Ruoxuan cried, Miss, please save us. Are you really going to watch us die? Mayan sneers, save you? Why? Do I know you? What do you mean? In any case, we were captured together and have gone through thick and thin together. How can you be so heartless and selfish and leave us in the lurch? Miss, we are in the same boat. Saving a life is better than building a 7-storied pagoda. I beg you to be kind. My parents and brothers are still waiting for me to go back. Sob, sob, sob. I don't want to die. I'm only 17. Please spare me. The girls who were caught began to cry. Most of them were only in their teens or 20s. They looked young and pitiful, and their cries were even more pitiful. Even those stone-hearted guards would feel a bit of pity when they saw such a young girl crying. Of course, they wouldn't show any mercy when it was time to act. Chapter 869. Ning Yuqing shouted, Miss, I don't know who you are, but I have offended you today. I, young Master Ning, have eyes but failed to see. I am willing to apologize to you. As long as you are willing to let bygones be bygones, I promise that I will personally escort you out of Heavenly Fragrance Brothel. From now on, the Ning family and Heavenly Fragrance Brothel will not pursue this matter. Saying that, he bowed very sincerely. Even if I have offended you, I did not do anything to you. Please be magnanimous and spare me and Heavenly Fragrance Brothel. Chen Xiuxiu and the others' eyes lit up at his words. If young Master Ning really could escort them out of Heavenly Fragrance Brothel and let bygones be bygones, then they wouldn't have to worry about being defiled and humiliated in the future. Chen Xiuxiu said agitatedly, Did you hear that? Young Master Ning has already apologized to you. Can't you be magnanimous and magnanimous? Mayan's mouth hooked up in a mocking smile. No. Today, I will take young Master Ning's life. If she hadn't seen Ning Yuqing's true face with her own eyes, she would have thought that there was only a small conflict between them. Ning Yuqing's face twisted. He was driven mad with anger. He had already lowered himself to this extent, but this woman still wouldn't let him go. Chen Xiuxiu and the others almost fainted from anger. Yun Xiang couldn't help but say agitatedly, How can you be so vicious? Do you really want to see us all die? We are in the same boat. We should help each other. But you are going to leave us in the lurch? Aren't you afraid of retribution in the future? Suddenly, her eyes fell on Wei Zi, who was not far away. Seeing Wei Zi hiding behind Mu Yin, she immediately became excited. Wei Zi, junior sister, quickly ask this woman to save us. We are both pitiful women who share the same fate. I'm also your senior sister. Are you going to watch me die? Wei instinctively shrank back, but her usually obedient and timid face slowly showed intense anger. She took a few deep breaths, then suddenly shouted, You are too shameless. Back then, for the sake of your own survival, you sent me and this big sister out to be defiled by others. You have the face to say that you are in the same boat? What right do you have to ask big sister to save you? You are the most selfish and shameless. You want me to save you now, but when you tie me up and push me out to be violated by others, to be used as a cultivation vessel, have you ever thought about the fact that I'm your junior apprentice sister? I don't have a heartless senior sister like you. Even if you die today, you deserve it. You deserve it. None of you have the right to blame little Missy. Woo 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 woo. After Wei finished shouting, she couldn't help but burst into tears. Her tears were heart-wrenching. It was as if all the fear, grievance, and despair he had suffered for so long had finally erupted at this moment. Mu Yin couldn't help but shake her head. This little girl was too good at crying. It was as if she was made of water. But Yun Xiang was scolded by Wei Zi's words until her face turned red to her ears, unable to say a word for a long time. The prostitutes of the Heavenly Fragrance Building, who were watching the fight from the sidelines, originally thought that these girls were pitiful and that Mayan had a heart of stone. When they heard Wei Zi's complaint, all of them revealed expressions of indignation and sympathy. Chapter 870. You clearly pushed her out as a scapegoat, and now you still have the face to ask for help. Even if I'm a shameless whore, I wouldn't do such a disgusting thing. Hee hee, these righteous women look down on us prostitutes, but under their sanctimonious faces, they are actually dirtier than us. If this girl really can destroy Heavenly Fragrance Brothel, we can be saved. The words of Heavenly Fragrance Brothel's prostitutes reach Lu Ruoxuan's ears. Her pretty face flushes red. Her face is filled with guilt, panic, and grievance. Girl, I'm sorry. I really didn't mean it at that time. I was just too afraid that senior sister would be hurt. So I blurted out that you have water spiritual roots. I'm sorry. If you want to hate someone, just hate me, okay? I beg you to save my senior sister and these innocent people. That's right, girl. At that time we were sorry, but we only wanted to save ourselves. In a moment, we are willing to personally kowtow to you to apologize and give you generous gifts. We only beg you to save us. Boo-hoo, big sister. I really know that I was wrong. I don't want to die. I beg you to save us. Lu Ruoxuan's words are lovely and touching and full of sincerity. The others are even more heartbroken. They would be very pitiful. But Mayan sneers inwardly. What she hates the most in her life is being threatened, especially by moral coercion. Ning Yuqing sees that her face is as calm as water and thinks that she has finally softened. He grins and says, Girl, I think this matter should end here. Let's write it off. He hasn't even finished the last word, what? Mayan's figure suddenly disappears. The next moment, Ning Yuqing feels a stream of water hitting his face, covering his head, followed by a bone-chilling cold. Ning Yuqing quickly revolves the spiritual power in his body to resist. A flame erupts from his hand. Qin Xiuxiu, who is being choked by his throat, screams. But it's still a step too late. The water ball covering his head instantly turns into ice. Mayan's figure descends from the sky. The long sword in her hand lightly slashes at the frozen head. A crisp sound is heard. Ning Yuqing's head falls from his neck, rolling to the ground and smashing into pieces. Yes, his entire head was smashed into pieces. After a while, the ice crystals melted and a sticky liquid spread on the ground. Ning Yuqing's headless body swayed and finally fell to the ground with a thud. Ah! The girls who were caught screamed in terror. You killed young Master Ning. You actually killed young Master Ning. The guards of the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant and the Ning family roared in anger. Some of them fled, while others attacked. Mu Yin doesn't care about the people who are running away. However, those who attacked her were all killed by her at the fastest speed. In just a few short breaths of time, the noisy heavenly fragrance restaurant turned silent. However, this silence was mixed with countless fresh blood, corpses, and terror. Mu Yin flips her wrist, and the 7 Absolutes sword dissipates in the air. She couldn't be bothered to take another look at this damned place and turned around to leave. Wait a minute. An angry voice called out to Mu Yin, who was about to leave. Mu Yin turns around and sees Lu Ruoxuan glaring at her, her small face flushed red. Chapter 871. Mu Yin looks down at Qin Xiuxiu. She sees that her throat and chin are burned, but it's not life-threatening. It's just that she can't speak for a while. Seeing Mu Yin looking at her, Qin Xiuxiu fiercely glares at her. Her eyes are filled with extreme resentment, as if she wants to tear her apart. Mu Yin sneers, "What does it have to do with me whether she dies or not? How can you say that?" Lu Ruoxuan trembles with anger. "Even if we really let you down before, we've already apologized to you. Why are you still so heartless? Why can't you save us? What's more, young Master Ning only offended you. He didn't really do anything to you. He simply doesn't deserve to die. Why are you so aggressive, insisting on killing him? You're really too vicious." Lu Ruoxuan's words aroused the resentment of the other girls in a split second. Each and every one of them excitedly point at Mu Yin and curse. They scold her for being heartless and vicious, scold her for having no morality, scold her for not saving others, and some even scold her for being ungrateful. That's because after they escaped from Tianxianglu, they planned to come back to save her and Weizi. They have morality in their hearts, but Mu Yin watches them die without saving them. Mu Yin is simply amused by this group of shameless women, but she has always followed the principle of not speaking if she can beat them, and not letting them live if she can kill them. So, seeing these selfish women denouncing her after taking an inch, Mu Yin turns her wrist to take out the Tian Emochin. But before she can move, a woman suddenly rushes out from the corner and shouts at Lu Ruoxuan and the others. "You sanctimonious people know nothing. You actually say that Ning Yuqing doesn't deserve to die. Have you ever been defiled by him? Have you ever had your dantian and meridians broken by him as a human furnace? Have you ever been thrown to a group of men to be humiliated, unable to live and unable to die? You don't know anything, you haven't experienced anything, and you actually have the nerve to say that he doesn't deserve to die. He doesn't deserve to die, and the ones who deserve to die are you." Then, 2, 3, 4, most of the prostitutes of Tianxianglu rush out. Tianxianglu's business has always been excellent, and the biggest reason is that the quality of the women here is particularly high. Not only did it refer to one's appearance and figure, but it also referred to one's talent, cultivation, upbringing, and manner of speaking. But who would be willing to be a prostitute who was loved by thousands and praised by tens of thousands of people if she was truly talented and cultured? Therefore, most of these women were pitiful people who had been forced into prostitution. There were even many who had resisted with all their might, only to end up with a fate worse than death. Day after day, they were locked up in the heavenly fragrant restaurant to receive customers. They were humiliated, spurned, and humiliated. He could no longer return to his previous life. He had long since despaired of the future and submitted to the heavenly fragrance pavilion. However, under the surface of submission, there was a deep hatred that seeped into his bones. Now, seeing Mu Yin killing the entire heavenly fragrant building and leaving corpses strewn all over the place, beating up that high and mighty scum young Master Ning until he pissed his pants in terror, and in the end, even dying without a complete corpse, their hearts were truly indescribably carefree. He felt that the grievances and hatred that he had suppressed in his heart for many years could finally be released at this moment. But at this time, Lu Ruoxuan and the others actually accused Mu Yin of being cruel, accusing Mu Yin of not killing young Master Ning. Chapter 872. So much so that before Mu Yin could make a move, all the prostitutes rushed out with righteous indignation. At first, it was just cursing. Lu Ruoxuan and the others blushed and were at a loss. But Yun Xiang and the others still wanted to refute, and some even scolded them in disgust. Shameless prostitutes. You've been slept with, you're no longer clean, and you don't deserve to live in this world. Finally, these prostitutes were completely enraged and madly pounced on them, pulling their hair, tearing their clothes, and slapping their faces. Although Lu Ruoxuan and the others had high cultivation, how could they be compared to these prostitutes in terms of numbers? Moreover, the anger and despair that these prostitutes had accumulated for so long had already turned into a raging fire at this moment. Even if they burned themselves and the other party together, they didn't care. How could a few weak women resist? Mu Yin looked at the scene in front of her, shook her head, and turned to leave without any reluctance. Other people's lives, no matter the ups and downs, were not something that she could bear or control. Wei Zi looked at her back as she left, glanced at the fighting crowd, gritted her teeth, and trotted to catch up with Mu Yin. In the chaos of Heavenly Fragrance Brothel, the first to arrive was not the Ning family's reinforcements sent by Ning Yuqing, but Lu Ruoxuan's senior brother Pang Yunfei. What the hell is going on? Junior sister, how did you get so badly injured? Seeing the chaotic and bloody Heavenly Fragrance Brothel, and Lu Ruoxuan and the others with their faces full of injuries and clothes torn, Pang Feiyun's face was full of shock. He quickly took off his clothes and put them on Lu Ruoxuan. Junior sister, what happened? How did Heavenly Fragrance Brothel become like this? Lu Ruoxuan burst into tears and threw herself into Pang Feiyun's arms, sobbing as she recounted what had just happened. Pang Feiyun's face was full of heartache as he hugged Lu Ruoxuan and comforted her. Qin Xiuxiu, whose neck and chin were burned, watched this scene, her eyes full of jealousy and unwillingness. After that, she, who was used to being overbearing and willful, immediately stepped forward and pulled the two apart. She even took the opportunity to push Lu Ruoxuan and said to Pang Feiyun, "Senior brother, you must find that bitch for me and avenge me." Her throat was burned, and her voice was hoarse and unpleasant to hear. As he spoke, his wounds were affected, and his entire face became distorted and ugly. Pang Feiyun turned his head away in disgust and said coldly, "Don't mess around. If it weren't for your willfulness this time, Ruoxuan and the others wouldn't have fallen into such a dangerous situation and almost made us miss the sex selection. When you return this time, you better reflect on yourself. You absolutely cannot act recklessly in the future." No one is allowed to mention what happened today. If the Ning clan were to find out that they had something to do with young Master Ning's death, the entire Bright Moon sect would have to bear the consequences. After that, without looking at Qin Xiuxiu again, he turned around and hugged Lu Ruoxuan, comforting her in a soft voice. His expression was indescribably gentle. Seeing this, Qin Xiuxiu clenched her fists so tightly that the veins on the back of her hands bulged. Lu Ruoxuan snuggled in Pang Feiyun's arms and cried, "Senior brother, I really didn't mean it. At that time, I just wanted to save senior sister in a moment of desperation. Why won't that lady forgive me? Why did he have to be so cruel? Senior brother, did I do something wrong?" Chapter 873. That woman is so vicious and ruthless. Her origin is unknown, and her cultivation is extremely high. Maybe she's a witch who practices some evil methods. You'd better not provoke her in the future. If you get hurt again, your senior brother will be distressed. Lu Ruoxuan nodded obediently and showed Peng Yunfei a timid smile like a little white flower. Peng Feiyun only felt that his whole heart was about to melt. Even if he had to go through fire and water for her, he would not hesitate. This little sister of his, although her cultivation was not the highest, her talent was not the highest, and even her appearance was not particularly beautiful. But there was a kind of pitiful, white lotus-like temperament that he couldn't help but want to take pity on. At the thought of that vicious woman leaving such a little sister to die, Peng Feiyun couldn't help but frown. If he had the chance to meet this woman, he must teach her a good lesson and avenge his little sister. After leaving the heavenly fragrance building, Mu Yin stood among the mountains, not knowing where to go for a while. She sank her consciousness into the space and asked Little Phoenix, "Qiuqiu, what kind of place is Xiaobao in? Can you describe it in more detail?" Little Phoenix tilted his head and flapped his wings, trying hard to sense. After a long while, he hesitantly said, It's a very comfortable place. There's a warm air circulating in Little Brother's body, and then Little Brother will quickly become powerful. Qiuqiu also saw an exit, but there's a barrier there. If Little Brother wants to go out, he will be bounced back by the barrier. That's right, Qiuqiu also smelled that there are a lot of fragrant spirit herbs in the cave. When Little Brother is hungry, he will eat red fruits. There are also broken swords and beautiful swords. Oh, there's also a painting hanging on the wall. But Qiuqiu can't see what's painted. Little Phoenix stuttered and talked for a long time. Mu Yin only knew that Xiaobao was safe now, and his cultivation was rapidly improving, but he was trapped and couldn't get out. But with these clues alone, she couldn't find Xiaobao's location. A cave with a barrier. Where could it be? Humph, it must be some broken sect's secret territory. Qi Huang's cold voice suddenly came. Mu Yin quickly asked, "Sect's secret territory?" On the lawn not far away, a youth in red was lying lazily. Her jet-black hair covered the ground like silk, and her long eyelashes were slightly lowered, covering her glass-like eyes. The light from the sky and space fell on the young man's jade-like skin and pink and bright red lips, making his face look even more like snow. His eyebrows were like a painting, but they also looked young and immature. Hearing Mu Yan's urgent question, the young man snorted and turned his head away, refusing to answer with a tsundere face. "Qi Huang," Mu Yan called out again. Qi Huang raised his long eyelashes and glared at her. His cheeks were a little puffed up, and he looked very childish. However, the words that came out of his mouth weren't polite at all. Woman, you just offended me, and you still want me to tell you news? Dream on." Mu Yan takes a few steps forward and slaps the top of his head, messing up his silky smooth hair. "Stop messing around. Quickly tell me, where is Xiaobao?" Qi Huang rolls away from Mayan's ravaging, his peerlessly handsome face flushing red. You woman, you're really shameless. Men and women shouldn't touch each other. You're not willing to copulate with Bin Zun, yet you actually dare to make a move on Bin Zun. Chapter 874. Mayan suddenly unhurriedly says with a malicious look on her face, "Qi Huang, you kept saying that you wanted to have intercourse with me and help me resolve the yin and yang sha. In fact, you don't even know what intercourse between a man and a woman is, right?" Qi Huang's face stiffens all of a sudden, and then he explodes like thunder. You're talking nonsense. This sage is a tool spirit that has lived for tens of thousands of years. How could I not know about intercourse between a man and a woman? Believe it or not, this sage will do you on the spot right now. He looks like a cat whose tail has been stepped on, looking indescribably cute. Mayan scoffs and laughs. "All right, my pure tool spirit that has lived for tens of thousands of years, quickly tell me where that place is, okay? I'm really worried about Xiaobao." As she speaks, Mayan has already restrained all her smile, looking at Mayan with sincerity and pleading. The girl in front of him, when she's languid and casual, is already radiant. At this time, with rapt attention. Those pair of peach blossom eyes are like a bottomless pool, capable of sucking in a person's soul. Being stared at by those eyes, Qi Huang's anger and arrogance completely disappear without a trace. He unconsciously opens his mouth. In this Xiuzhen continent, there are a few broken sects that can be considered passable. They generally have their own secret realms, and in these secret realms, there will be forbidden areas that are shielded by a barrier, just like what Little Phoenix described. These kinds of forbidden areas usually store the sect's most supreme treasures. No one will open them for a long time, but it's also usually difficult for outsiders to enter. Mayan's brows slightly wrinkle. A sect's secret realm? But there are so many sects in this Xiuzhen continent. How can she find them? As she ponders, Mayan's expression suddenly congeals, and she lightly shouts, "Who is it?" Her divine sense has already withdrawn from the space. Looking at the direction in which the girl has disappeared, Qi Huang stares blankly for a good while, before angrily pounding the ground with his fists. Bastard! He clearly wanted to grab hold of Mayan's weakness and have her apologize to him. Why did he just say everything that he knew just now? Little Phoenix sees Qi Huang's murderous aura lingering around him and whines, hiding far away. Boo-hoo-hoo, Lord Qi Huang is so scary. Qiuqiu doesn't want to be alone with Lord Qi Huang. Little big brother, Fat Bunny, when will you come back? Qiuqiu missed you guys so much. Mayan opens her eyes, and her sharp gaze suddenly turns towards an ancient tree not far away. Still not coming out? A moment later, a slender figure came out from behind the tree. Seeing the person, Mu Yin frowned slightly. "It's you? Why are you following me?" The person who came was the only girl that Mu Yin had saved in the Heavenly Fragrance Building, Weizi. Weizi shuffles her small steps and approaches Mayan little by little. She cautiously says, "Big sister benefactor, I want to follow you, serve you, and repay you for saving my life. Don't despise me, okay?" Mu Yin frowns even tighter. To tell the truth, she disliked this little girl who could cry very much from the bottom of her heart. The Heavenly Fragrance restaurant has already been destroyed. Why don't you return to your sect? Hearing Mayan's question, Weizi's tears fell again. Senior sister is the sect master's niece. I've offended senior sister, so I can't go back to the sect anymore. Chapter 875. Mu Yin originally wanted to refuse, but thinking that she really wasn't good at all kinds of trifles, and that she was completely clueless about this strange Xiuzhen continent, she hesitated for a moment. "It's fine if you want to follow me for a while," Mu Yin said slowly, "but there's a condition: you're not allowed to cry in the future." Hearing this, Weizi knew that Mu Yin was willing to let her follow, and she immediately burst into a big smile. I know, I won't cry in the future." Although Weizi, this little girl's courage is only as big as a grain of rice, and she loves to cry. But because she naturally likes to listen to gossip, she can answer most of Mu Yan's questions. Through Weizi's answers, Mu Yin finally has a certain understanding of the entire Xiuzhen continent. The Xiuzhen continent is divided into 4 big realms: Minlujia, Qingtianjia, Songlongjia, and Ziyunjia. Ziyunjia has the highest status, and Minlujia is the lowest. And Mu Yin and the others are now in Minlujia. According to the little girl Weizi, the difference between Minlujia and Ziyunjia is equivalent to a magnificent palace and a shabby thatched hut. Minlujia is the worst among the 4 realms in terms of spiritual energy purity, growth of spirit grass, and production of spiritual tools. But similarly, the higher the level of the realm, the stronger the law of the jungle, and the more serious the power struggle. Therefore, many people who are not talented enough, and whose cultivation is not high enough, will stay in Minlujia to hone themselves. If one day they feel that they have enough strength, then they will go to the other 3 realms. Hearing the little girl compare Min Lu Jie to a thatched hut, Mu Yin feels deeply speechless. On this land, she can feel spiritual power between her breaths. Using spells and Shen musician skills is no longer as constrained as it was in the Yinwu continent, fearing that her spiritual power would be exhausted in a short period of time. If such a place is called a thatched hut, then what is the Yinwu continent she used to live in? A pigsty? Do you know which sects have secret realms, or places that are very comfortable, can enhance strength, and are full of spirit grass? Mu Yin roughly describes the place that Qiuqiu said. Weizi frowns and says, Miss, places that are very comfortable, can enhance strength, and full of spirit grass, must have very rich and pure spiritual energy. Such places are generally only possible in some secret realms, or the sect's cultivation tower. Mu Yan's eyes brighten. Tell me, many sects usually recruit disciples with good innate spiritual roots. In order to nurture these disciples, they need a place for them to grow and train. Therefore, these sects built cultivation pagodas specifically for their inner court disciples to cultivate and improve their cultivation. The bigger sects, as well as those famous academies, have their own secret realms. The secret territory was several times better than the cultivation pagoda and could cultivate the most powerful elites. Naturally, only the top of the sects can to the secret realms can too. Mu Yan's eyes lit up and she quickly asked, if I want to enter these cultivation towers or secret realms, what should I do? Weizi was shocked and shook her head. That's impossible. There are no big sects in our Min Lu boundary. The most tyrannical one is the Ning family. But even the Ning family doesn't have the qualifications to own the cultivation tower and the mystic realm. Chapter 876. Mu Yin wasn't dismayed when she heard this. She said faintly, Min Lu Jie doesn't have it, but Azure Heaven Jie, Azure Blue Jie, one of them will have it. But if we, the people of Min Lu domain, go to the Azure Heaven domain, we will be looked down upon and bullied badly. Weizi said anxiously. Suddenly, she seemed to remember something and her eyes lit up. All right, miss, if you want to go to a big sect, there's a great opportunity right in front of you. I heard that the Azure Heaven world will hold a sect selection competition next month. In it, even the Li Fire sect will send people to select disciples. The Li Fire sect was the most prestigious sect in the Azure Heaven world. There were countless disciples in the sect, so there was a cultivation tower in the sect for the inner disciples to gain experience. They even have the right to open a secret realm with a few large sects in the Azure Blue realm. How do I participate in the sect selection tournament? Mu Yin interrupted Weizi. It's at the Windless Plaza at the intersection of Min Lu Domain and Blue Heaven Domain. Miss, I'll go to you. Weizi said excitedly. With your talent, the Li Fire sect will definitely choose you. If you perform well, you might even be able to become an inner disciple. Mu Yin did not immediately arrive at the Windless Square. Instead, he was stopped in a small city less than a dozen kilometers away from Windless Square. This city was called Cyan Green City, and its meaning was very simple. It was where the Cyan Green Domain and the Blue Sky Domain intersected. To enter the Blue Heaven realm from the common Green Domain, one had to obtain a travel permit from the city guard of the Turquoise City. Of course, there were naturally other ways to forcefully barge into the Blue Heaven realm. However, those who entered the Blue Heaven realm without a travel permit would be treated as unregistered residents. The practitioners of the Blue Heaven realm could kill these unregistered residents at any time and place, but they did not have to bear any responsibility. On the contrary, if they obtained the travel permit, even if they were bullied in the Blue Heaven realm, at least those cultivators would still have a sense of propriety and would not kill them. Miss, you can take a rest in this inn. Let me handle the travel permit. Weizi confidently patted her chest and left. Mu Yin, on the other hand, began to stroll around Verdant City with great interest. This is the first time she has seen a town in the cultivation continent, and it is the first time she has seen so many people. Although the Heavenly Fragrance brothel had a constant stream of customers, it wasn't opened in the downtown area because it was involved in human trafficking. Mu Yin was a little surprised to see the magnificent scenery of the turquoise city. Compared to the Yinwu continent, the cities and towns of the Xiuzhen continent aren't too different. Similar streets, similar shops, and similar pedestrians. However, there was still a difference. For example, the streets are filled with spirit beasts that are used as mounts, but they haven't even seen one in the Yinwu continent before. For example, the things sold in the shops are no longer the same as in the Yinwu continent, where they are only ordinary herbs and weapons. Instead, they are all spirit herbs and spirit tools that contain spiritual energy. Mu Yin casually walks into a restaurant and orders some food that contains spiritual power. She didn't have many crystal stones on hand, and they were all looted from the Heavenly Fragrant restaurant, but it was more than enough to eat a meal of spirit food. However, the resources in Minlu domain were too scarce. Therefore, the spirit food sold in restaurants was usually expensive, scarce, and tasteless. Mu Yin casually tasted a few mouthfuls and stopped. At this moment, he heard the discussion of a few men. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.